We live?
We're live.
Welcome to a virtual meeting of the Allen Park Board of Education. During these challenging times, our school community remains strong and supportive. Please continue to keep your focus on taking care of yourselves, your families, and each other. This evening, citizens who wish to express public comments may do so by accessing the online citizen comment form located on the district website. The homepage has a link that will lead you to the form as well as to this evening's agenda. Your comments or questions pertaining to an agenda item will be read during item number 8. Comments or questions pertaining to non-agenda items will be read during item number 12. Comment forms will be accepted up until that time of the meeting. Please indicate on the form if you wish to receive a written response or if you just wish to make a comment or statement publicly. Prior to this meeting, board members and presenters ran a test of the system. Please note that no business took place. It was merely a technology test. And with that, we will ask everyone if they can please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to
the flag of the United States of America,
and to the republic
for
which it stands,
one nation, under God,
indivisible,
with liberty
and justice for all.
Thank you for that. Mr. Dawson, can we have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Filipiak.
I am present.
Mr. Klein.
Here.
Mrs. McDonald.
Here.
Mr. Miller.
Here.
Mr. Moynihan is absent this evening. Mr. Scherer.
Here.
And Dr. Warren.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll seek approval of tonight's consent agenda items, which is approval of the August 10th, 2020 agenda, approval of the July 13, 2020 meeting minutes, approval of registers for July 20th, July 16th, July 22nd, July 23rd, and July 30th, and approval of wire transfers from July 10th through August 6th.
So moved.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any questions or discussion on that item? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Any opposed? Moving on, number 5, President's Communications. I do want to acknowledge that I received a number of email communications from APEA staff over the last 2 weeks regarding bid pool. And I have received about 8 to 10 emails from staff regarding reopening. And outside of that, we'll move on to reading and communications. Mrs. Flipiak.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Board members have received and appreciate the feedback, suggestions, and comments from AP teachers regarding the bid pool concept and process. Mr. Darga has been working on administrative guidelines for the district hiring process, which includes a process and timelines in order to honor bid pool, while achieving a goal to attend early spring college job fairs and extend open positions to a larger pool of highly qualified, diverse candidates. Mr. Darga will be meeting with the union leadership as soon as possible to review the administrative guidelines.
All right. Thank you, Mrs. Flipiak. And that moves us on to item number 7, racial awareness and equity in Allen Park Public Schools. I will turn the meeting over at this point to Mr. Darga. Mike, you're on mute.
Sorry, thanks everybody. Great to see everybody. Thanks for being here. Before this presentation gets underway, I'd like to share that I firmly believe that all students should feel physically safe, emotionally cared for, and academically and socially included in a caring and inclusive community. To that end, I am so very pleased to introduce Ms. Kristen Pierfleece, a teacher at Allen Park High School and an Allen Park High School alumni, Sarah Zalay, and Michael Harris. These amazing individuals have submitted an exciting proposal and will be provided a presentation on racial awareness and equity in Allen Park Public Schools this evening. Racial awareness and equity presentation presented by, again, Michael Harris, Kristen Pierflees, and Sarah Zalay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Darg. I'm going to share my screen now. Just 1 second. Get the present button. All right, so now you all can see my screen. I've had a really great chance to get to work with both our administration as well as Michael and I and a lot of our high school teachers as well. So Michael and I are alumni. I graduated in 2018 and Michael in 2016. And we're really just excited to share what we've been working on. The genesis of this initiative really started with us being home for the summer. COVID changed our plans, and really just seeing the gap that existed in Allen Park and really the huge opportunity it was for the community to come together, start this conversation, and see where we can take actionable steps to continue. And so it kind of started with a brainstorming team involving current students, alumni, our teachers, our parents, administrators, and board members to really figure out what gaps we all saw that we know that each of us individually don't have all the answers, and really meeting with these parent groups and these alumni groups and really to form what our focus was. And it resulted in 6 focus areas that Michael will share in a moment. Really to kind of specialize and make sure that we're able to reach our intended impact and continue it to be community driven. So as we continue, it will take the form of a task force, the Racial Awareness and Equity Task Force, or RAE, as an advisory task force with subtask forces for each of the focus areas. And we invite all community members to join us as we develop and continue to these actionable steps. So now Michael will share a little bit about our focus.
Yeah, so our first kind of focus of this task force has been curriculum. So one of the main things that Sarah and I have been working on is decolonizing our curriculum. In the short term, we've been having some alumni go through the ELA 10 and the AP US History curriculum in particular to see how we can fill in the gaps. We're looking at ways to incorporate non-white narratives in the books that we're reading, the history that we're teaching, and the way to diversify and foster empathy and the types of curriculum we're teaching and how best to have these conversations. In the long term, again, we want to continually be reevaluating the curriculum to address the racism within it, to see how best we can be serving the students and giving them a proper education, making sure that, again, we're filling those gaps and figuring out how best to have these conversations surrounding our curriculum within the classroom. And this doesn't have to just be adding new curriculum or adding new books or adding new history subjects. It can also be talking about the current things that we teach in a different light, in a different way. So that's kind of one of our main pillars, curriculum. The next piece of it, staff education. So right now we have been organizing Zoom meetings with some of the high school staff to share kind of what we've been working on, to get their feedback, figure out what their role in it is, and for them to ask us questions in a more smaller group setting. The long term, we want to continue to work with the teachers on the work we've been doing, kind of working with them on professional development and making that shift into having this professional development around racism in the classroom, microaggressions, and kind of what these things mean. We want to make sure that the teachers and the students are in this two-way kind of learning cycle where the teachers are learning from the students and the students are learning from the teachers. Everyone can benefit from having these conversations, and want to make sure that there is an atmosphere of empathy inside the classrooms in between the teachers and students. So staff education, again, is something we feel very important about. The next piece of it, peer-to-peer dialogue. So Sarah and I both feel that this is one of the most critical aspects of this. We feel that when the students are in small group settings, they're able to kind of lean into the discomfort more talking about these conversations, build more empathy, more compassion, and share different narratives from their own. We're hoping to train students first semester to facilitate these conversations. We found different curriculum that we can use to have these conversations and to facilitate and to train the students to have these conversations. We're really hoping to kind of broaden what their experience and what the narratives are, really making sure that we're filling in the gaps of the history of systemic racism and the institutionalized racism, And we feel that in these small groups, they'll really be able to kind of foster the empathy and really have these more intimate conversations when they're not afraid to make mistakes. They're not afraid to ask questions. They really can take it to the next level and have these conversations.
Yes, and then another key thing is our disciplinary protocols. And really with this, it's just a huge opportunity to really solidify our disciplinary protocols for racially charged incidents. So that way, if a teacher, they are know what's going to happen if it's sent to the administration. Also, it ties into staff education, where we want to equip them with the knowledge and resources to handle the microaggressions in their classroom and identify it in their classroom, learn the strategies to combat it in their classroom, but also know when it's time to send it to the administration and have it be a very outlined process where this is what's going to happen if they go to the administration. And then also another key piece is making sure that we're meeting everybody's needs, both by making sure that we aren't further marginalizing our students of color through disciplinary protocols, as well as making sure that we're supporting them with proper resources as they go through this process. And then another key piece, and again, we want all of these actions to be informed by the needs and wants of the community. And through that is surveying. So really working with our district, with the administration to make sure that this is a way to expand our reach of voices and really continue that effort. And then also the diversity in hiring, which we know that our board and administration has already taken a huge step forward to make it at the forefront of our a priority for our district, and really make sure this is just a way to make sure that it maintains at the forefront, because all of our students deserve to see themselves reflected in our staff and faculty as well.
Yeah, so this is going to be kind of our layout of what the task forces are, what the sub-task forces are, and things of that nature. So the reason that Sarah and I kind of to start chose this more of a circular diagram instead of the normal organizational hierarchy diagram, we really want to make sure that these task forces and what we're doing, we have a united front. It includes everyone, and that we're kind of all working together. One thing that when we talked to Mr. Dargo, one of the main things that we had kind of talked about was that this is a community initiative. We want to make sure this is being driven by everyone. And we are, we want to make sure we're addressing this as a front, as a united front. We're not going to be able to get things done if we're kind of in these small islands working independently. So kind of at the center, we have the advisory task force. Their kind of mission is to make sure that all of the sub task forces are staying kind of on their goals. They're working together still and making sure that everything is kind of being tied neatly together. And so our sub task forces, we have the curriculum, staff education, peer-to-peer dialogue, disciplinary protocols, which were the 6 that we just talked about. And then we also had middle school alignment and elementary alignment. And Sarah and I felt that they kind of needed to be their own sub task forces, because obviously high school students versus middle school students versus elementary school students, all extremely different populations. You're going to teach them different ways, address topics with them different styles. So while a lot of things might be able to carry it over from the high school to the middle school and to middle school to the elementary school, we want to make sure that we're really approaching these populations in a way that's going to be receptive for them. So we wanted to make sure we had those sub task forces to make sure that we were meeting the needs of the entire district and not just the high school.
And then finally, our next steps. So we invite you, our students, parents, alumni, staff, board members, and administrators to join us as a part of the task force. That link will bring you to a more detailed summary of what we've been working on, interest form if you're interested in a task force, a feedback form, as well as a email interest form to join our email list. And really, we hope that this continues to be community driven. And really joining a task force, as I've had a lot of conversations with people my age and older, we're looking for ways to engage in this anti-racism work. And this is a tangible way to engage in your community that will have a actionable, tangible impact. So we really are excited to work together as a community and continue working together. And then another piece just below that, the creating a plan for month 1 and the strategic plan that's overall, that will be the work of a intermittent strategic planning task force. And that'll be a smaller group just to make sure that kind of crafting the long-term plan, the timeline, what our goals are, how we're measuring our goals, and then also the plan for month 1 kind of revolves around creating a way to start the school year on this note. When everything else is out of our control, we can control our change through this work, and kind of choosing to focus a little bit on that this school year as well. So if you're interested in the strategic planning task force, we would love if you would fill out that form in the next couple days, just because it is more time sensitive to start working on that. And then also, we also invite you to join any of the subtask forces. You can select which ones you're interested in on the form. And we really want to emphasize that we truly look forward to working together to meet the needs of every student. And thank you to the board and all of the people that we've gotten to work with so far. It's been a really great and rewarding experience, and we're really excited to see where this goes. And with that, we'll give it back over to Gordon.
Okay, Sarah and Michael, thank you both. First-class examples of the kind of students that Allen Park High School turns out these days. Great job and a great cause. Any other members of the task force? Anything else to add before I move forward with the resolution?
I was really just here as a support for Michael and Sarah. I say how much pride I have in the work that they've done, and I'm happy to have been a part of it. I was just really here if you guys had any questions from the staff side of it, but I think Sarah and Michael did a great job of covering everything.
Okay, thank you for that, Ms. Pierre-Felice. With that being said, I do want to take this opportunity to thank the presenters as well as the brainstorming team, Jeremiah Alfred, Joe Bannock, Melanie Beeler, Larry Dunlap, Michael Harris, Maureen Klein, Laura Lukey, Mary McMaster, Cass Melville, Kristen Pierre-Felice, Ames Sexton, Izzy Slate, Sarah Zalay, and Priscilla Zen. I'm really appreciative of your efforts to bring this forward as the task force to the board. At this time, we do have a proposed resolution that has been shared with the board. And so a suggested motion is that the Allen Park Board of Education adopt the resolution to commission a racial awareness and equity task force and call for a commitment to creating a socially aware, equitable, and inclusive society through education as presented.
Motion.
Support.
Okay, it's been moved and supported. I'm going to go around to each board member for any commentary on this one. Mrs. Flipiak, anything?
I just want to say to the team that you guys have done an amazing job. The work that you've put together. I love that this is a community initiative that you're wrapping around and bringing in teachers, community members, alumni, students, board members. I think it's awesome. You guys are awesome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Mrs. Flipiak. Mr. Shearer.
Yeah, this is awesome. It's really timely too. No, this is really, I'm excited about this. You know, obviously Allen Park is not the most diverse community or the school. And so this is really a great step in the right direction. I'd be interested in more details, you know, maybe a presentation in the future on a little more behind each of the tick points, and some of the survey results would be fascinating. I guess really that's it for now. Thank you. Excellent.
Thank you, Mr. Shearer. Mr. Klein.
Yeah, I am so enthusiastically behind this. Sarah and Michael, it gives me so much hope for the future to see two amazing young adults doing such great work. I'm honored to be able to call you guys friends. Thanks for bringing it forward.
All right, thank you, Mr. Klein. Dr. Warren.
Mike always steals my lines. No, absolutely amazing work. I was so excited when Sarah called me, and you know, she's one of my neighbors, lives around, you know, just down the street from me, and said, "Can I come over and can we have a quick chat?" And you know, I was all excited. And then when she brought this forward, I was even more excited. So proud of the work that you guys have done. I think this is amazing. Everybody that you've involved, keeping it going and not letting it fizzle out. I am so proud of you guys. Thank you again. Oh, by the way, I did just try to already go on the site and it told me it was not secure. So I don't know why, but I'll try. My husband works for the government, so maybe that's why. But I'll try.
I'll fix that. I'll try and fix it right now. Thank
Okay,
you so
thanks.
much.
But I tried for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Warren. And I don't believe Rick has joined us yet, so we'll move on to Mrs. McDonald.
I echo everybody else's comments. I think this is overdue, quite frankly, and I'm glad that we're working on it. I would love to get involved, as I had told Sarah and Michael at our meeting. I have experience both at the elementary and high school levels, so I think there's a little bit of work that could be done there and some connections that would really foster growth. So look forward to working with you guys.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. McDonald. And lastly, I guess I would just say not much to add to all of those glowing comments, except that really proud that this is being driven by recent alumni of Allen Park High School again. When it goes together, when this comes together as part of a community effort, it's got a much greater chance of longevity and succeeding and being implemented, and that will only be for the benefit of so many students throughout our district. So thank you all so very much. I'm also very happy to have had you stay on this meeting until we pass the resolution, which we're going to take a vote on right now. And thank you again for all of your efforts. So we have read the motion. It's been moved and supported. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Being none, motion carries 6-0. Thank you all so much.
Man, awesome.
And we look forward to what happens next during implementation. Thank you all so much. We'll move on to the agenda at this point. Item 8, citizens' comments. We'll ask Dr. Tefelsky for citizens' comments that relate to tonight's agenda.
Yes, sir. We have a number of them that relate to tonight's agenda. The first one is from Sandy Winkler. It says, racial awareness and equity in Allen Park Public Schools is a critical issue for our students and families. As a PTA member, I want to make you aware of the National PTA Position Statement addressing institutional or systemic racism, available at pta.org/advocacy. As background, National PTA is the world's largest children's advocacy organization with a mission to make every child's potential a reality by engaging and empowering families and communities to advocate for all children. There are 5 PTA and PTSA local units in Allen Park. National PTA's position statement says that it is our duty to listen, educate, and advocate for meaningful change to end institutional racism, to listen and hold courageous conversations with our membership and communities, to educate ourselves on disparities for children of color, and to review and address bias in programs, to advocate at local, state, and national levels for investment in educating students and teachers on the history and impact of institutional racism. Thank you for initiating actions towards racial awareness and equity in Allen Park Public Schools. The next one is from Laura Holder. And it is, my son is planning to attend Taylor School's welding program. Is that still a possibility? And how will the plan affect him? The third one is from Maria Gaetens. And Maria, there is a word in here that I attempted to look up on Google. It is lower Brule. I hope I am pronouncing that right, but I did attempt to look it up because I did not want to mispronounce. And Maria's comment is as follows. I want to take a moment to commend the recent Allen Park graduates that presented an anti-racist strategic plan at the board meeting. As Lakota Crow Creek and daughter of my tribally enrolled Lower Brule mother and family, it has been difficult, even in my adult life, to find colleagues with great understanding of Native issues or even culture and life. I'm a music teacher in a neighboring district, and it is so difficult to present authentically Native musical experiences when so many educators and curriculums perpetuate racist material. Sports mascots, Native Halloween costumes, Columbus Day education, Thanksgiving programs, and the use of words savage and tribe in our school experiences are hurtful and racist. Raising my son and having to explain why these are false representations of our history and family life is exhausting and demeaning. Stereotypes run rampant about my own culture in our community, so I can only imagine the stereotypes and difficulties faced by more visible and prominent minorities than I in our area. There is a great amount of work to do in anti-racist education. Today's presentation is an incredible start to a more inclusive and anti-racist community, beginning with our teachers and our youth leading the way. I cannot express to the board how much it means to me that anti-racism will be a part of our children's school curriculum in Allen Park. This is an important task that needs to be done, but not an easy one in this time of crisis. I know tonight's comments and meeting will be focused mostly on safe school reopening, and I commend that and encourage the consideration of a virtual start, but anti-racist considerations are an essential start of a move towards an equitable society. As a teacher, I cannot say how envious I am of Allen Park school teachers. My own neighboring district has not uttered a word regarding anti-racism and the need to grow. This is the right side of history, and I thank the panel and the board for their time on this important topic.
That's great.
Number 4, oh, that was the same comment. Maria, I believe you hit submit twice. So if there was something different in this one, I apologize, but it appears to be the same comment. Citizens comment number 5 from Terry Simons. What options or accommodations besides an unpaid leave of absence will there be for teachers with health issues relevant to COVID-19 for this school year, if and when we have face-to-face instruction? For example, will teachers with pertinent health concerns be assigned a remote teaching position for students that chose distance learning? Will they be able to take a paid medical leave of absence? Will they be able to use their accumulated sick days prior to an unpaid leave of absence? Please advise in a timely fashion so that these staff members may plan for how they will support their families during this pandemic. Thank you. Comment number 6, also from Terry Simons. At the last board meeting, it was noted that the plan included purchasing face shields for elementary students and staff members in lieu of face masks being worn, and then parenthetically by students. The CDC has always stated that face shields by themselves are not sufficiently effective with COVID-19 unless a face mask is also worn underneath the shield. Furthermore, since that time, there's been quite a bit of evidence throughout our country and world that children, even under the age of 10, do indeed contract COVID-19 and are quite capable of passing it on to others. Governor Whitmer very recently commented on this evidence when she mandated young children mandated young children at daycare centers and summer camps wear masks through yet another executive order. Therefore, it would be prudent for any face-to-face action plan to have mandated face masks for all students and staff, regardless of age. How does our plan for resuming face-to-face instruction at any point this school year address this well-known safety protocol? Comment 7 from David Schroeder. My concern is regarding high school band and marching band and the back to school plan. My hope is that whether students go back in person or virtually, there can be some kind of way for the high school students to play as a band. Band camp was not held this summer, but maybe it could still be held outdoors in the next few weeks or even in September in the evenings or weekends with social distancing and other safety precautions in place. Maybe we can get creative and find a way for our school musicians to still have some form of band. What can we do for our marching jags and for our band classes so they don't miss out on these musical experiences? Comment number 8 by J. Anthony Reddy. Hello, Allen Park Board of Education and Community. I am writing to voice my support of the racial awareness and equity work that is being done by Allen Park alumni. As a high school educator here in Michigan, I am keenly aware of how approaching education with a racial justice and equity framework is imperative in not only preparing young people for their future studies and careers, but also for creating communities where we can all thrive. I hope to see and hear that your board strongly supports this important work. Jay Anthony, I hope I got your name. I hope I pronounced your name correct. I apologize. Amira, and I don't know if it's Saidi or Sadie. Amira, Sadie, or Saidi. Again, Amira, I hope I pronounced your name correctly. I'm a teacher and resident in Dearborn. I am writing about Sarah's plan for your district. I've had the honor of meeting with Sarah and learning about all the work, thought, and intentionality that has gone into the strategic plan. Sarah and her co-founders all graduated from Allen Park and are currently busy undergraduates at the U of M Ann Arbor, but felt this work could not go undone. I hope that every district would be so lucky to have such alumni and urge the district to support their efforts to the fullest extent. Jacqueline Brown, my son is enrolled in Arno through School of Choice. If I choose homeschooling for my child this year, will he still be considered an AP student, or will I have to go through the open enrollment process again? From Jennifer Menzer, why is it not safe to hold a meeting face-to-face, yet you are going to send my children in a hot box building to school? Number 12 is a topic not on this evening's agenda, so I will read that later. Although actually, now that I see it, it says it is from a concerned parent with an anonymous email address. So we do not read anonymous comments. So if somebody out there would like to resubmit that for the last agenda item, we can read that. This is a comment from Marlene Scott. I would urge the board to continue to consider class size, PPE for all students and staff, and the physical building preparedness as the largest factors in whether or not face-to-face instruction is possible during phase 4. Until these issues are resolved, I believe remote learning is the safest option for our children and community, regardless of how much we all want to go back to normal. Number 14 is from Amy Karwowski. And Amy, I hope I got your name correct. Excellent job addressing race at Allen Park Schools and making it important right off the bat. Hashtag BLM. This one is from Eric Tumara. And Eric, I hope I got your name right. Tumara, Eric Tumara. I am not concerned at this time about racial awareness. I do not teach my children to judge people based off of color. I'm only concerned that my children go back to school using an Allen Park Public School building. Comment number 16 is from Julie, and again, Julie, if I pronounce this incorrectly, I apologize. Hegetis. The elementary students need to go back to in-person learning as they need face-to-face connections with their teachers. The teachers are the most educated and prepared to educate the students properly. Virtual learning is a struggle for young children and working parents to support them while performing their jobs. I'm confident in AP to place appropriate safety protocols for students and staffs and in-person learning for the safety of everybody. Comment 17 is from Eric Tumara. When has there been racism in the recent past at Allen Park Public Schools? If there is an issue with racism in the schools, maybe I should pull my kids out of Allen Park Public Schools. Thanks for the awareness. Comment 18 is from, it looks like Amanda Beck. If the proposal regarding school is virtual for a limited amount of time, i.e. October 5th, as stated in the parent survey, how far ahead of this date will we be deciding if an extension is indicated? If an extension to a later date is needed, how far in advance will we be notifying the community? Will they be notifying the community? Excuse me. Number 19, Amy Masala. Has there been any word about cheer at the middle school? Sorry, I don't know if this is an agenda issue or not, but it has to do with sports, so I hope it is. And finally, the last comment from Amanda back again. If virtual learning is the plan being taught by APPS educators, how many hours of face-to-face actual instruction via video per day is going to be required? This would be actual instruction, not fun social Zoom calls, actual lessons or activities around a lesson or subject. And finally, the final one is from Amy Crawford. As a parent of a special needs child, I urge you to consider in-person learning. All children cannot learn through virtual means. And I believe that is it, Mr. Miller. I've refreshed my screen, and that is the last one. So if anybody would like to submit comments that are not towards the not regarding the agenda, you can do so from the link on the homepage.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Tofelsky. Appreciate that. We'll circle back to you under item 13, or sorry, I'm sorry, item 12 at the end of the agenda for comments not related to the agenda. I also want to state that, you know, if we have a meeting where we have one comment, sometimes we'll bandy that about at the table a little bit. Given the volume of comments tonight, it'd probably be unfair to pick one to talk about, the other not to talk about. So as long as anybody who made a comment this evening check the box to receive a written response, we will provide a written response to you. And if you don't have that within, you know, call it a week or so, you should certainly reach out to central office and they can provide an update in that regard. Okay, thank you. Moving on to item 9, personnel, A, Award of Excellence. Mr. Darga.
Thank you very much. Award of Excellence, congratulations on your retirement. Lisa Hunt, teacher, Allen Park High School, 32 years. Arthur Wall, teacher, Lindeman, 25 years. On behalf of the Board of Education and the entire school community, I'd like to take this opportunity to wish Lisa and Art much happiness in their retirement and thank them for their invaluable contributions that they have made to Allen Park Public Schools. I will read what Lisa shared with me. In my 32 years with the district, I have thoroughly enjoyed my experiences with students and my fellow teachers. I have tried to be a positioned team member and someone who would get things done. I have led, I have followed, and found satisfaction in both roles. I'll miss the daily interactions with the staff and students a great deal. There wasn't a day that went by that I didn't laugh and learn something new. I feel that AP is unique in the excellence of its teaching staff. I have no doubt that they will continue to demonstrate the high level of professionalism and dedication to the school community that has always existed. And Art shared that It is with some sadness and yet some excitement that I inform you of my retirement. I am grateful to the Allen Park Public Schools for allowing me to be a member of the Lindemann staff and a member of the Allen Park school community. I am proud of the wonderful career with the children and families that make up the community. I also am grateful to have worked with so many incredible people through the years. I always approached my profession with passion. I tried my best each day to reach and teach the children in my class, but the time has come for me to move to the next chapter of my life. Please accept this letter of retirement, and please accept my true appreciation for believing in me all these years. To you both, it has been an honor and privilege to have Lisa and Art, members of the AP school family. Best wishes for your retirement filled with good health, joy, and fulfillment. This is a time when their hard work and dedication deserves our gratitude and a virtual applause.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Darga. And I hope that when we get back to meeting in person at some point in the future, we will extend an invitation for them to appear live if they'd like to. We always enjoy seeing our retired educators in this district who've done so much to make the district what it is. Moving on to item 9B, employment services. Mr. Darga.
We are recommending that the individuals listed to be employed. The candidates were interviewed and recommended by committee. As appropriate background checks have been conducted. Lauren Budineski, teacher, Lindemann, effective 9/1/2020. Bryn Campbell, girls and boys varsity swimming coach, Allen Park High School. Madison Campbell, girls and boys varsity head swim coach, Allen Park High School. Michael Laffrey, bus driver, transportation. Jessica Lanetree, teacher, Benny. Amor Tillman, counselor, Allen Park High School. Catherine Vanek, teacher, Lindemann. Emily Yeater, teacher, Allen Park Community School. The suggested motion that the recommendation for employment and services be approved by the board individuals presented.
So moved.
Support.
Okay, it's been moved and supported. Any questions or discussion points? Hearing none, all those in favor say
Hey,
aye.
Gordon, this is Pat. I just, I went through the deck and I read a lot of the resumes and stuff, and it's really neat. It's like I said, people from all over the country with all kinds of unique experiences. It's, I think it's going to be really a nice additions, all of them.
Agreed. Thanks, Pat. Anyone else? Okay. So we'll go back to where we were. It's been moved and supported. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Darga, item 9C, retirements, resignations.
We have received and accepted the following resignation and retirements. Michelle Desardins, lunch parapro, Allen Park Middle School. Thomas Fasca, teacher, Lindemann. Lisa Hunt, teacher, Allen Park High School. Kimberly Isom, freshman sideline cheer coach, Allen Park High School. Warren Stowe, teacher, Allen Park High School. Arthur Wall, teacher, Lindemann. Lisa Wojtovich, teacher consultant, Riley Education Center. Catherine Zambrelli, lunch parapro, Benny.
Oh, Gordon, you were muted.
I was muted. I want to point out there that Michelle Desjardins is the spouse of longtime board member Guy Desjardins. I hope that her retirement means that they're off to do some fun things. So good luck to her. Moving on to 10, we have no old business. So 10B, introduction of new business, return to school plan 2020 focus group presentation. Mr. Darga.
At this time, Dr. Tefelsky is going to share his screen and we'll walk through a PowerPoint plan for the return to school plan, Allen Park Public Schools.
All right. Everybody can see that, I hope.
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Very good. We'll go ahead and move to the next slide. The elementary task. First off, I'd like to thank everybody. When this first started several months ago, we actually formed task force and asked for assistance. Governor Whitmer then came through, and again, she kind of introduced the fact through her return to recovery plan, the roadmap plan, that there was going to be 3 different areas. Allen Park Public Schools formed task force. We had an elementary task force as well as a secondary task force. The very first slide there is the focus group chairs. We'd like to also make sure we thank Adriana Serrano, Beth Wesley, Elizabeth Cunningham, Lisa Smalley, Julie Manner, Rachel Warnick, Megan Johnson, Art Wall, Karen Brooks, Deb Green, and our parents were Nicole Atkins, Kathy Sokolsky, Sue Clark, Julie Hegedus, Sheila Monahan, Marlene Scott, Stacy Sison, and Linnell Wilson. Our secondary task force, we had 3 different areas. We had academics, extracurricular, and also a health and safety task force. Those then were John Kelly, Sean Laura, Josh Andrews, Toy Aker, Joe Bannock, Jory Kiesel, Janine Lambert, Mary McMaster, Cassandra Melville, Bruce Andrews, Michael Dawson, Rose Arbel, Jake Berry, Karen Moran, Megan Rourke, Amy Sexton, Amy West, Patrick Donahue, Michelle Calvillo, Kelly Carey, Denise Crank, Laura Jones, Carrie Kephart, and Hannah Murray. What we know for the 2021 school year. We know that the health and safety of our students and staff will remain the #1 priority. We know that regardless of the scenario we choose to open in the fall of the 2021 school year will not be a normal school year that we are accustomed to. We know that in-person learning with outstanding educators, support staff, and leaders is the undisputed best way for students to learn. We know that trying to educate during a public health crisis. We know that the recent rise in COVID-19 cases among gatherings of young people in various spots of the country is very concerning. We know that virtual learning this fall would be an improved and robust experience for all involved. All teachers received essential to remote learning professional development this past June. We know that to get through this year, our board, administration, staff, and committee must continue to work together to best meet the academic and social academic needs of our 3,800 plus students. Preparedness plan assurances, and again, these come right from the roadmap. Phase 1, 2, or 3, we are to close buildings except for necessary district employees. We know there's no athletics or after-school activities. Provide continuation of food distribution and deploy employees to provide meaningful work. In phase 4, which is the phase we are currently in, prohibit indoor assemblies or gatherings that bring together students from more than one class. Cooperate with the Wayne County Health Department with any confirmed cases. Explore the plans for delivery of an instruction. We know that there's the 3 plans here, that the full in-person plan. We know how to do this. We have done this well and continue to improve, but we'll leverage some of our technology for a better in-class experience. One of the things we're looking at is a one-to-one device K-12, Google Classrooms, and K2 Seesaw. So the delayed in-start person option was the one-to-one devices K-12, Google Classroom, K2 Seesaw, premium subscriptions to Screencastify, Edpuzzle, and other tech tools for teachers and students. We also have included the full virtual option, which is K-5 Calvert Learning, K-6-8 courseware by Edmentum, and 9-12 E2020 by Edmentum. Dr. Tversky is going to go through our next slides.
Yep, and you hear me okay, Mike?
Yes.
Okay, so we wanted to present the survey of our major findings. So in the the survey that we gave in July, 65% of parent respondents selected a 5-week virtual start using remote learning as their first or second preference. And we decided when we were looking at the survey to use first or second preference because we felt that that was something that if it was chosen as the first or second preference, it was something that participants could support and get behind. There was a lot of polarity. Obviously, some people, their first choice was in person, and then their last choice was online, and then for other people, it was flipped. So we were trying to find some consensus among the group. So that's why we decided to look at first or second preference. For the staff, 72% of respondents stated that a 5-week virtual start using remote learning was either their first or second preference. So the elementary task force came up with a schedule, and I'm going to introduce Kathy Lott, Steve Zielinski, and Adriana Serrano to talk about the elementary task force, the schedule that they devised for online learning for our students.
Adriana, did you want to start with some of your thoughts?
Sure, yeah. So my name is Adriana Serrano. I'm a 5th grade teacher at Lindeman. I served on the elementary focus group. We, like Mr. Darga said, we had to brainstorm 3 different scenarios for school opening, which would be virtual, in-person, and hybrid. So as we were looking specifically at a virtual start, we were looking at other districts' virtual plans and taking a look at their virtual schedules. So one of our more recent focus groups where we had teachers, parents, administration in was looking at a virtual learning schedule example from another school district. And we had a big, long discussion about, and just, very open discussion about what a virtual learning schedule would look like for Allen Park students. And whether those examples that we had looked at would align well for our elementary schools if we were fully virtual. So that led to the proposed elementary schedule for Allen Park. So just a few things to point out in regards to the proposed schedule. It does provide, so the proposed schedule does provide more of a structure than what we had in the spring from March to June. It does mimic more of a normal school day as if we were in person, and would make for an easier transition when we do return back to school. So if you take a look at the schedule, you'll see like different time chunks for different subject areas. So
I'll go back to the beginning, Adriana, so you can do reading and writing if you want to use that as an example.
Okay. Sure. Yeah. So you'll see like a decent time chunk for reading and writing, and then math, and then for science or social studies, with also specials time worked into the schedule. So again, it does mimic the, an in-school schedule, but I like that we talked a lot about how the schedule allows for big chunks of time for a subject. And one of the concerns was, well, what would my child be doing during that huge chunk of time, like an hour and 15 minutes for reading? So as a focus group, we talked about how that chunk of time, they're not just going to be on a Zoom that entire time. It would allow for whole group instruction, small groups to be scheduled, individual instruction to be scheduled, as well as allowing for different applications that we were just trained on in June as well, like Screencastify, Flipgrid. So there would be flexibility within that time slot, which is great for teachers who are able to tweak those times or break them down a little further for what best meets their students' needs. So another discussion was about, well, what if these time slots don't always work for my child? So that is where we would have pre-recorded videos, pre-recorded lessons that would still be available to students if that time slot that day or even that week didn't work well with their home schedule. So still having in those pre-recorded videos or pre-recorded lessons like we did in the spring, but obviously having a little bit more structure for the day-to-day. And then another big thing that was discussed as well was having extra time to formatively assess our students and to remediate standards from March to June. That's obviously a big deal. We know that March to June was like just chaos control at times. It was very unexpected. And so allowing time to really assess our students and then tweak what we need to from there, in hopes that we might need to take 1 or 2 steps back to fully move forward and move full steam ahead. So the extra time that is allotted in the schedule would really, really benefit our students as well for their academics, just kind of going back to some things we might need to touch back on from March to June. So.
All right. Yes. And that was a big focus of the academic part of the focus group in terms of really prioritizing what needs to be taught, not necessarily going backwards for weeks and weeks of review, but doing some of those formative assessments, seeing where the kids are at, trying to move forward, with those that can, trying to catch everybody else up in that process. And also we're also looking at using NWEA this fall, even if we are virtual. They do have the virtual option now for NWEA, and they have new 2020 standards too, to see where the kids are going to be at. So we have that in the works as well. The schedule is also set up in such a block way so that parents would have some consistency. So that if you had 3 kids at home, that one kid didn't have a lunch starting at 11:50 to 12:20, and another one of your children had a lunch starting at 12:15 to 12:45. So we really wanted to avoid that. So we kept a kind of block scheduling, and within those blocks, the teachers can really play along with the large group, the whole group, and it was really important to the parents that their kids are not on the screen all the time. So we want to make sure that that's into that schedule. And some of the things it doesn't show here as well, like social emotional learning, that's going to be a big component to the online learning, as well as relationship building. When we're virtual, it's going to be kind of initially tough to build those personal relationships. So we're really going to have to devise some strategies to still be able to do that, so that our students feel a connection to their teachers.
I do think, can I throw it in there real quick? With the beginning of the day, that morning meeting time, and committing to that is a piece of that relationship building, and making sure it's happening and scheduling it, because it's so easy to get going and then completely forget. And then same with the end of the day, that sort of wrap up and check in. What do you need? What do you have questions about? What do you need help with before we move on for your homework or tomorrow's work or whatever it might be? Sorry, Steve.
Nope, I was just going to say, with the special schedule woven in there as well, it sort of mimics what we were doing in the buildings as far as the specials go. But in order to keep that block, what we did was we installed a 30-minute prep. And then at lunchtime, it's an hour lunch. So it's basically a 40-minute normal lunch. And then it's additional 20 minutes of prep, so that the teachers are still getting that 50-minute prep per day. It's just not consecutive 50 minutes, but they will get that 30-minute block with specials. One thing with special ed and at risk, we're still trying to take a look at what we might do with our 31A at risk aides, our Title I aides, and also with the special ed resource room teachers, how we're going to collaborate with the classroom teachers, just really as they do normally in the beginning of the fall, to weave into those sections and work with the students that need the most help.
And I think Adriana touched on it a little bit, but that idea that we follow, for the most part, a very similar schedule to what they would in person allows us, if we go back and then we need to come out for periods of time, for the schedule to not be really wonky and kids trying to figure out what's going on. It's going to be the same any way you cut it, because it'll look very similar to this if they are in the building learning as well.
Correct.
I think that was one of the goals of both of the task force, to create these schedules. Unfortunately, we know that throughout the school year there may be intermittent times when we have different acts through the COVID, that we may have to take time off. So at any given time, if we end up going back to in person, and let's say a month or two passes, and all of a sudden we have an outbreak in any given building, that building would then go, most likely go back to a remote learning environment. That's what the schedule we would then again pick right back up with. So we would miss very few steps in between these transitions, and that's important.
Correct.
Anything else, Sarah, or I'm sorry, Kathy or Steve or Adriana, that you want to throw in there?
No, I think we're good.
Okay. For the secondary task force, Sean, Laura, John Kelly, and then Mary McMaster to talk a little bit about it.
Okay, Mary, do you want to give some of your thoughts first before John and I chime in?
Sure. The secondary task force was made up of the academics. There was the task force that I was focused with, and we were looking for a remote schedule that, as my colleagues in the elementary level mentioned, had some structure to it that would allow teachers some flexibility in working with the large groups of students, but also allowing the students to have a schedule and be on task throughout the day. This schedule doesn't mirror our normal schedule very well. I think at the community school they do block scheduling, but at the middle school and the high school, we do not. So this idea that we would be meeting with our students for 90 minutes is really foreign to most of the educators at the secondary level. But what we thought that might look like it could manifest in a number of ways. You could have large group instruction like you would do in a classroom on a Zoom where you do direct teaching for maybe 20 minutes and then set the kids out into breakout rooms, which we do a lot in our classrooms anyway. We use group work. And so we put them in different breakout rooms and they would be able to work together and then have them come back together at the end for a closing or a share out. Would be one way to use that time. Another suggestion was to take the students and break them into smaller groups so that they get more direct instruction in a smaller group. So a teacher might meet with a third of their students for 30 minutes and then the other third and then the other third, while those students are also working on an asynchronous piece or perhaps a synchronous piece that again, they're gonna come back together and collaborate at the end. Another possibility would be to, and this often happens in a class like chemistry or math that has some skill practice involved, where you would instruct and then give the students time to work on those problems while you're still available right there in that real time to assist them. It is our hope that students would mostly be attending these opportunities synchronously. However, the task force knows that we need to work on offering asynchronous options as well, as the academic elementary school task force mentioned, that there will be times where kids can't necessarily be in all of those. So you'll notice that we have first, second, and third on Monday and Wednesday, fourth, fifth, and sixth on Tuesday and Thursday. And those, that last day, Friday, we really were looking, this of course was a model that was taken from another district. We were looking at that as being more of a student resource day where students could check in with their counselor, check in with the social workers. Advanced placement classes might require a little extra time for meetings. Kids that need to make things up and meet with a teacher or meet with a teacher for more help. Those were all things that we thought could happen on that Friday as well. We were, as a secondary task force, I'd like to share that we were excited to be given the task to work on a remote option. We did feel that a delayed start was probably the best, where we could see in the next 5 weeks where we're going, where our students and teachers are at home, where they can be safe. So that was something that we were looking at. You'll notice that the last block of the day, from 2 to 3, these times would have to probably fluctuate with the collective bargaining agreement, but those were set aside for things like office hours and clubs and activities. Our task force also talked about providing rooms and a place where Link Crew, which I don't know, most of you guys are familiar with, is a mentoring program, and the Web is a mentoring program at the middle school, where we need to deliver curriculum to the 9th graders or to the new 6th graders that's ongoing throughout the year. So that's just one example of some of the things that might be going on during that time frame as well. We definitely are aware of the fact that students should not be on a Google Meet for 90 minutes of instruction. And I think that the creativity of our secondary staff will work well within this time frame.
Ms. McMaster, I hate to interject. There are going to be folks that are not familiar with the terms of trade. Could you just quickly tell everyone the difference between synchronous and asynchronous as you were using them in your presentation? Thank you.
Yes, actually, that was one of the first tasks our task force set at, is there was a lot of confusion. So in our recommendations that we sent to Mr. Darga, we actually did define some terms, and we defined online learning as asynchronous. It's like a college class, but it's done in the high school too, but where the teacher sets forth the agenda and kids do it kind of on their own time, and then they submit things. And so there is no, you're pretty much on your own schedule. Where remote learning, what we're proposing here, is where you would be in contact with the teacher. And so synchronous means that there are certain times that are set aside for those classes and for that instruction. So every student in the secondary would report to their first hour on Monday at 8:30 to get the instruction from their teacher, whatever that instruction would be, and they would outline what that next 90 minutes would look like for first hour. And that would be an example of synchronous learning where you're actually doing it in real time. And asynchronous would be something that a student could do, you know, later on in the evening, after dinner, or something like that. The other definition was, I think I said remote learning, where we're actually working with the students remotely. And there's been a lot of talk on social media and in the media itself about schools not reopening. And one of the things I just would like to take this opportunity to clarify is Allen Park Public Schools is reopening. We are reopening, whether we're virtual or whether we're in person, face to face. We are reopening, and the teachers are really excited to get back at it. We don't know that we did as excellent of a job from March to June as we know we're capable of, but we've had all summer to prepare, and I think that's what's been going on with a lot of my colleagues.
Yeah, and you know, talking about preparation versus in school, or excuse me, in person versus remote instruction. If we were to start in person, and things trended worse or trended the same way they are trending, and then we had to quickly pivot to remote instruction, it's a lot easier to pivot from remote to in person versus in person to remote. So, if this is the way that we decide to go, teachers can start preparing all their Google Classrooms right now, as opposed to in March, when they had really a day notice, if that. The other thing is with these 90-minute blocks, like Ms. McMaster said, there's not going to be an expectation for a kid to sit in front of a computer and listen to someone talk for 90 minutes. Really, that extended time is there for the teacher to give a lesson, and the teacher's there accessible while the students are doing some guided or independent practice, so that mom or dad doesn't have to sit with them at the table later that evening trying to figure out how to solve a quadratic equation. That the teacher's there from 8:30 to 10, sitting with the student virtually. The other part on Friday we thought was really important to address the social emotional aspect of students, their mental health throughout this pandemic, and having dedicated time to set aside for some of our social workers to meet with some of those students. We were looking at implementing a social emotional learning curriculum prior to this pandemic this fall. That could be an area of some of our school social workers implementing some of that curriculum as well. So we felt that was important to build that into the schedule.
Anybody else want to add anything? Okay, we will continue on the PowerPoint. So the next slide is the health and safety. When we are face-to-face, there will be daily online health screenings for all staff, substitute employees, and scheduled visitors. And we are going to require social distancing in common areas. The district is unable to social distance in classrooms in some offices. Each office has a temperature scanner, and there is an identified quarantine room in each building. There will be directional signage in the hallways to ensure, to the extent possible, hallways are one way. Hand sanitizer stations, hand washing stations, and obviously sinks throughout the building. We will be requiring masks for all staff and students in grades 6-12. And we have heard feedback from parents, teachers, and staff members about masks for students in grades K-5. So we're reviewing data on that. That is certainly something that we are awaiting more information on and reviewing more data about. We are requiring masks for all staff and students in hallways and common areas, regardless of grade level at this time. And then there will be increased hours for elementary student advocates. Those are the employees that we see in the front office. Their smiling faces every day, along with building secretaries at the elementary schools. And then there will be restrictions for visitors. To the extent possible, we will be not allowing visitors. If you are picking up your child, there would be an ID check through our buzzer and camera system. And if the weather was bad or you needed to, you could wait in the vestibule. But we will not be, again, to the extent possible, allowing people in the district. There are some maintenance standards and cleaning requirements that we'll have to adhere to. The CDC standards for more frequent deep cleaning. That's a mandate. So common areas are going to have to be cleaned. Touch points will be wiped frequently. There are MSDS, material safety data sheets, located on the district website under public and legal notices. So we've had parents concerned in the past what chemicals are being used. We do have to adhere to the MSDS sheets. And so you can see every cleaner that is used in every building. So if you have a kid at Lindeman, you can look up what cleaners are in Lindeman and see all of the ingredients and all of the cleaners that are used at Lindeman. All classrooms will be provided spray bottles with EPA-approved disinfectant, towels, gloves, and masks with a face shield. Stocked cleaning stations will be identified throughout buildings. Student desks will be wiped down every time students exit the room at the elementary level or after every class period at the secondary level. And then high-frequency usage areas, again, will be wiped down multiple times throughout the day. Playground equipment will be cleaned twice a week or more frequently as necessary. There's been some questions about hygiene and PPE, so we're hoping to be able to answer them here. Every classroom is supplied with a fixed or portable hand washing station or hand sanitizer dispenser. Paper towels, soap, hand sanitizer, and tissues will be stocked daily in classrooms. Sharing school supplies will be limited to the extent possible, and disinfectant spray will be provided in the event we cannot or sharing has to happen. Office staff will have plexiglass installed, and then all staff will participate in the mandatory online safe schools training, which includes the addition of 7 coronavirus segments. We are requiring staff to wear masks, obviously, so we will provide masks to all staff. And then if staff members would also like face shields, we'll provide those as well. Some of the masks that we have, or frankly, all of the masks that we have are cloth masks, but then they have a window over your face, because that was important to many of our staff members in the focus groups when they're talking to students. They wanted kids to be able to see them talking while being protected. So we thought that was important. And we have seen the data on face shields, so we wanted to make sure that we were providing masks and face shields to people. KN95 masks we also have a shipment of those coming in. Clear face masks will be provided for special education staff. And then portable plexiglass shields for itinerant auxiliary staff will be provided as well. And I just want to make sure that while we're talking about, I know I mentioned special education staff, I think that it's important to note that we have a variety of learning platforms that are uniquely tailored to our special education staff and students. MobiMax unique learning systems and other online programs such as GoNoodle for physical exercise, ReadWorks, and then Google Chrome has a number of extensions to assist in accessing content. And we're going to do our best, obviously, to make sure that we provide our students with what they need to progress under difficult circumstances when we're online. Transportation will be something that is going to look and feel a little bit differently as well. Signage will be added to each bus to address the use of face masking of all students and bus drivers. Buses will be properly cleaned after the departure of the last child from each run. Face masks will be available at the entrance of the bus in the event a student does not come equipped with their own face mask from home. Weather permitting, windows will be kept open on the bus en route and when stopped, and professional development will be required for all bus drivers, and they'll be using cleaning logs as well. Bus aides and drivers will wipe down equipment on bus with specialized transportation equipment as well. The face shields, we are asking that for proper fit, and to ensure proper fit, students do bring their own mask, but we do have a significant amount of masks that we can give to students in the event that they did not bring one. But again, for proper fit, to ensure that students are comfortable and able to wear their mask all day, we do ask that they do bring some. But if they don't, we do have some that we can provide. Food service, during the spring, all students were eligible for food distribution between the executive order. Breakfast and lunch meal boxes for the week were picked up 2 times a week, and steps were taken to ensure social distancing and to protect staff and families. On September 2nd, we'll reinstitute free and reduced meal plans for eligible families, following all national school breakfast and lunch guidelines through a pickup program or until we return to in-person instruction. Serving cafeteria staff will again use barrier protective equipment, including gloves, face shields, and surgical masks, and students, teachers, and staff should wash hands before and after every event. Had a lot of questions around athletics and activities. The district will comply with all guidelines published by the MHSAA. All student participants will be required to complete a pre-workout, pre-participation health screen and temperature check. Parents of student athletes may have seen them. Now they're QR codes that we ask our students to fill out. And finally, this question has been asked, and we're happy to answer this. Fully virtual students may participate in school athletics and Michigan High School Athletic Association events and activities at schools. And finally, we wanted to talk a little bit about our full virtual learning option. The full virtual learning option differs from the face-to-face option. As I think Mary had a great terming, talking about our teachers providing remote instruction to students while we were not face-to-face. The full virtual option would be for those parents who decide, I do not want my child back in the school for a significant period of time. So with the face-to-face, the idea is that when we are in face-to-face learning, the children are in class learning, complying with the guidelines set forth. But then when we go remote, students just take their laptops home and they are working remotely from home. But then when we go back face-to-face, the kids go back. If you want a fully virtual option, that means that we are asking you, and I have here as the fifth bullet point, we have a good faith commitment to natural breaks. So you are committing with the fully virtual option to the best of your ability that you will keep your child fully virtual until a quarter, a semester, or a trimester, depending on your grade level. We are working with the APEA, Allen Park Education Association, to talk about what this is going to look like when we're delivering it specifically, but we are working with some providers, Calvert Learning for students in grades K-5, Courseware by Edmentum for students in grades 6 through 8, and E2020 by Edgenuity for students in grades 9 to 12. And a lot of parents have been emailing me. I welcome them. I'm trying to answer as many as I can, as quickly as I can. And I'm providing links to parents. So if they want to check out, hey, I have a third grader, I'm interested in the fully virtual option. We'd like to keep my child home until a vaccine is a very common thing that parents are saying. So I'll send them a link for Calvert Learning. They can kind of poke around and see what Calvert Learning looks like, what the offerings are, and I'm able to answer some questions for them that way. So that's it for our presentation. I'll stop sharing and ask the board for any questions that they may have for me or Mike, or frankly anybody else who is a member of the teams. But we'll do our best to answer all of these questions. I know there's going to be a lot.
All right, Dr. Tefelsky, thank you. So that we do it in an orderly way, let's work our way through the board members and see if who's got questions. Let's start with Mr. Shearer.
Man, okay, get comfy. The question, I had two questions. One, what are we doing about auto shop and woodworking? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Was that Mr. Shearer? Were you asking me? I apologize for that. I wasn't.
Well, somebody.
Yeah. So we are trying to determine what the best course of action for those classes is. When we're fully in person, they have a lot of space in there. And that lends itself well to social distancing and allowing kids to spread out. When we are online, I know Mr. Gulasari and Mr. Jenkins did a nice job last spring working with kids, but that some of the classes that tend to be more hands-on and tactile, that can be a struggle, switching between remote and in-person learning.
Okay, and then when you're teaching online, if the kid has, immediately has a question, is it like if you were in class, he could raise his hand and say, hey, I don't understand that. Can you do that online? Is that?
Yeah.
I can take that one, Mr. Shearer. I actually did AP chemistry from March until they took the test, and those kids showed up every day. And there are really two ways. There's the good old-fashioned raise your hand. There's also a button that they can press, and you see a little icon. I was using Zoom, but I'm sure Google Meet has similar function. And there also a unique thing that I did also was I used the chat room, and so that really allowed kids to have a question Another thing, great thing it's used for is I could ask a question to the students, they solve a problem, then they put their answer in the chat that was private only to me. I could see who had it, who didn't. I could call on the person who got it to explain it. So there's a lot of functionality that I think as we move forward, it will become clearer that while it might not be the best, it's definitely a functional way of doing our business.
Okay, that's awesome. No, thank you. And I know the spring was kind of nutty.
Yeah, we like to say in the spring we were responding to a crisis. So it's tough to think of that as virtual learning or remote instruction or online education or any of those things. I think it's really important to differentiate between what was happening in the spring and what will be happening in the fall if we have to go remote or online. That was, a professional crisis. We had to, as somebody mentioned earlier, we had to switch very quickly. But our number one priority in the spring was making sure that our families were safe and fed and healthy, and our kids had shelter, and trying to provide technology and reach out as much as we can. Now with the ability to plan over the summer and do a little bit of work, we're able to provide a more robust online education for our students.
So is for special education, then it will start out virtual also?
So we're trying to work through that right now. We're working with Dr. Sokol as well as the staff on the APA and what would best serve the different options that are out there. And so starting tomorrow, depending on the vote that goes tonight, we'll then have a focus on what's the best way to present that to the kids.
Sure. And then lastly, I just, this looks like I've mentioned this before to you, John and Mike, there's going to be families that can't do this. There's families, there's no way they can sit down with the kids and for a whole day and guide them through this, especially the elementaries. Especially if they both have to work or if they're on opposite shifts. That's going to happen. What's the plan for that?
Again, it's not an ideal setup by any means, and we said in the beginning that obviously in person is the way to go with our current situation. The best that we can do is reach out to these families. We've got staff that are ready to assist. We have to communicate, and I think we need to have honest dialogue and discussion with those families on what we can do differently to make it work to the best of our ability. And again, as of right now, we are looking at a 5-week term, pending on what's happening throughout the state. So we're hoping, unlike many other schools who've set a longer time frame, our goal is to get our students back in class. That's what our teachers want. That's what our families want. That's what we want in a safe, conditions. And so until that happens, again, when we have families that do struggle, we just need to make sure we've got the resources to reach out and see how we can better assist.
And I think we listen to parents as part of the focus group and as part of the task force. When we were creating that schedule, that was a big thing. It was valuable for us to sit in. From my standpoint, and I know Mr. Dargis said the same thing to focus groups. Like, we were talking about staggered start at the elementary level, and I was like, well, just bring A through F in, whatever. And that led to all kinds. Or I said, just bring grade levels in. And then one mom was like, well, I have a first grader and a fifth grader. So what? My first grader gets there at 7:40 and my fifth grader doesn't get to go in until 8:30. So we're like, oh, we didn't even think about that. And then we were like, if you bring in by alpha. So we learned a lot from parents, and we took that information that we gleaned from parents. So as Mr. Dargis said, it's really important that we listen to the struggles that our families are going to have. We know there are going to be struggles. You're talking to, one of two working parents as well. And my child's district has already announced that they're going remote until at least November. And so we got a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old, and a kindergartner and a 2-year-old. So that's top of mind for Dad Tefelsky and Dr. Tefelsky. Please understand that. So we sympathize and empathize, and we're going to do what we can to work with those families.
I would just say, and I'll sound like a broken record if anybody knows what a broken record is anymore. But, I think you're kidding yourself. I think you're going to have to provide an in-building supervised place for kids, because there's going to be kids that they just can't do this. What if they're homeless? What if they're living at the Allen Park Motor Lodge? You got to have a spot where kids can come in under extreme conditions. You don't want it to be abused, but you need a place they can come in and learn online, and you'd have to have somebody there to supervise, just to keep an eye on them. But there's no way. I mean, some kids are gonna go off the radar, and you got at-risk kids that really. I think you need to plan for some type of in-person, supervised, online, whatever. You don't have to teach them, but someplace they can go to, because not every family can do what you're asking them to do. So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Shearer. Mr. Klein.
Yeah, I've been making comments and writing them down, and I always come back to we're trying to figure out the best of some really less than optimal conditions, and we got to try to figure out what the best ones are. Some of the comments I have, it's a learning curve, right? We know that it was tough in March to June. That said, there were some people that excelled. There were some really great things that happened at that time period too. So I think it's important that we don't look at that as necessarily a failure. It was a learning time. I think we had some really good stuff as well. It is a learning curve. Kids will get better at this. They really will. Teachers will get better. Kids will. In fact, tomorrow I'm working with your Allen Park teachers as a collaboration, a statewide collaboration with the science curriculum, and they're meeting your teachers coming in. We're looking to see how do we take a really rich face-to-face type learning where we explore science phenomenon. How do we do that in an online environment? And there are lots of tools that'll help us do that. And, we will, I think we'll rock it. I think it's always better to be face-to-face, but I think it'll still be rich curriculum. So I don't want to lose track of that. The other thing is we've got to remember too, that as we kind of balance this, that face-to-face in this current situation, man, I listened to all those things that we have to put in place to bring people back into a building, and that doesn't feel like school anymore. Now it feels like a sanitized environment where I can't hug a kid, I can't be near a kid, I can't figure out how to talk to a kid. It's messy. So none of these things are easy. I like the schedule. I think that will help. I think it elevates expectations that this is school again. This is not we're going to try to figure this out, but we've got it figured out. We expect you to be there. We expect you to be there. I agree, Pat. We're going to need to find some ways to shore up the kids who are going to struggle. I guess one of the questions I do have is like when we get our first outbreak, when we go back to face-to-face. I know we're doing 5 weeks of virtual, so that's great. That gives us some time to kind of figure it out, gives us a chance to learn from some other people that have jumped back in a little earlier. But when we go back, do we feel like we have a plan in place so we can, because we know what's going to happen, right? We're going to get a kid that comes in sick, or a parent or a teacher that ends up sick. Do we have a plan that stops it so that we see that outbreak end at a couple of kids or only a couple of people, and we can, do we have a way to test kids early? Do we have some plans in place so that we can shut that down? So
that's the goal. That's the goal. Again, kind of keep the spread. Actually, Wayne County Health Department has put out a really good document, and in the latest Bridge magazine, it was actually referenced. That had come out in an article, dealing with COVID-19. And Wayne County is working, we're hand in hand with the Wayne County superintendents through Randy Lipa, and they meet monthly, and weekly, and we meet with them monthly. Wayne County's document that they put out has been shared with all districts to implement. And again, it's a situation that we will follow that guidance from Wayne County Health. And do our best. That's why we've created the COVID rooms. We've got a system in place, but the reality is we've not used that yet, and we don't know, when that actually happens, when we do come back to in person, and we, get our first case to run through that. The problem then comes into, we'll have pieces. It's a puzzle. We'll have pieces. We've got to put it together and see how far reaching that was, and that's one of our concerns with the fall return, a quick fall return of, again, having all of this in place. Wayne County Health just released that, a short time ago. And so
I think it was Thursday.
That's our starting just to digest that now. And again, that builds up a little bit more that we still have to meet, obviously, in Allen Park, our secretaries are starting to slowly come back into the buildings now. Administrative teams are coming back. We'll be hosting meetings just to go through training and going through these documents to be better prepared, because it's not when, it's it's not an if, it's when it happens. And as we know from the schools and in neighboring states, they're not making it 2 weeks before they're getting hundreds of cases within the schools and shutting back down.
Yeah.
And Mr. Klein, I had to laugh because Mr. Dargy and I have been hounding people about rapid testing. So we think that is the key, and that's one of the things. I mean, 5 weeks, I think, in pandemic speak is a really long time if we think to what 5 weeks ago looked like, and 5 weeks before that. And so we have met with the Michigan MEMSPA, the executive director of MEMSPA, and talked about how we envision schools helping in a rapid testing situation, and the valuable information that we could glean from communities and the work that could be done in our schools. Because right now, as you said, if we have a case and kid, we say like, okay, we have a suspected case, a student gets tested. I did a back to school test. It took me 5 days. Mr. Darger did his back to school test. It took him almost 10 days to get a result. So are we closing down the school for 5 days? Are we just pulling 3 kids out? Are we pulling 30 kids out? If I'm a parent and my kid was two rows behind, like, am I saying like, okay, that's fine, he wasn't an immediate contact? Like, these are all questions that are extremely important for not only the health and safety of our students and our staff and our community members, because there is such a high community spread, but it's also questions that need to be answered for the continuity of learning and the continuity of education, which we don't have answers to at this point.
Right.
What my last question, then we need to give some other people time. I know that we kind of suspended grading and kind of said, let's just do our best and encourage kids to be there. At elementary, that's not as, it's valuable and it's important, and we want feedback, but obviously grades, the high stakes nature of grades ramp up as you get into middle school and high school, where they get used for other things. Do we have a policy? What are we thinking about grading going into this first 5 weeks? How do we want to think about that?
We're pushing, we're going to treat that almost like an as in, attendance will be taken, grades will be taken, assessments will be given. We're moving forward, as Mary stated earlier. I mean, the reality is we're back to school. Whether we're in a virtual format, online, or we're in person, it's go time. So on first day, attendance is taken. When we need to assess, 5 weeks is still a long time. We're not going to hold off on assessments. We're not going to hold off on holding students accountable, just like we're holding our staff accountable to make sure that they're doing what they're doing. Administrators are doing what they're doing. And when we do get to the point where we come back in, it's a seamless transition. Right from the computer, the students, will be going one-to-one. They'll be bringing the computers right in the classroom, and we just pick up and go right from there. We should not have to put time into reteaching. We shouldn't have to put time into a lot of things like they talk about the summer slide. We'll take care of that within the first week, virtual, and we'll move forward. That's next.
I think the piece that Mr. Darger pointed out was the students going one-to-one in April. It was really hard because we didn't have a sense of who had equipment and who had technology. And now we know that every student will have a device, because we have hopefully with a later agenda item, the board will approve the purchase of these devices that we've ordered. And every student will have a device, and then our technology department has a list of parents and teachers through principals who don't have access to the internet. And so we're working with those families to make sure that they have not only a device but also connectivity.
Okay. All right. I think I accomplished my goal of asking more questions than Pat, so I'll stop now and let someone else have the floor. I win, Pat.
Give me another chance.
Thank you, Mr. Klein, for those questions. Dr. Warren.
I'm so laughing. You can't pick me. That was funny. Okay. Sorry. So, a couple of things. One, with the presentation, I overheard Seesaw K through 2, but in the
that was a mistake.
Okay.
The initial quote that I got was K2, and that's been in my mind and I also call Ed Puzzle Box. Like, it's been a tough couple of weeks, Dr. Warren. I'm sorry. So I'm gonna take the fall on that K2 thing. We did purchase software for K3. So K3 will be delivered via Seesaw, and then 4.12 will be Google Classroom. I apologize. That was my mistake.
That's all right. Obviously, just so those of you that are out there that do not know, I have a first grader, well, coming up to a first grader, a third grader, and a fifth grader. So obviously that was important to me personally because, I have kids in that realm. I also really appreciate you, Dr. Tofelsky and Mike Darga, for the rapid testing and you guys looking into that. I feel that would make a huge difference. Just to let you all know, I did talk to them about that. And it's not a nasal swab because I can only imagine I've had to get them done to return to school or return to work. If, you know, I keep getting them done just because of my profession, just to make sure I'm okay and I can continue. But it is cheek swab. Is that correct that we were talking about?
It would be saliva are the tests that we've been hoping to
push along,
advocate for.
Which I do like that. I think that will be very helpful, especially for either slowing the spread or catching it in its tracks. You know, both ways. I do like the schedule. I think you guys worked very hard on that, and I appreciate that greatly. But as Pat was saying, that will absolutely not work for my family. And I know that that is going to be the same for quite a few people on board. I'm an essential worker, and so is my husband, where we work all day. So that's going to be very difficult. Also, too, with the teachers, especially those with multiple kids, especially at the elementary school level, having to do this. There's no way I can sit my first grader in front of a computer and say, go, right? Like, we all know that that is not going to work. So I appreciate the fact that you're listening to our concerns and trying to help us find a way. My fifth grader, I think he could do it, to be honest. You know, if I set timers for him and stuff like that, I think he could do it. But my first grader, even my third grader, it would be very rough for him. So, you know, I look forward to kind of looking into how I can better do that. I did really like Monroe's plan. I had a few teachers send me that plan. I know, Mr. Darga, you had that plan as well. I'm sure you did too, Dr. Tofelsky. For the pods, you know, especially for those of us that have essential workers, teachers even that have multiple children that won't be able to teach their own kids because they're teaching our kids, as well as, you know, parents that do work, you know, two parents working or a single family home, you know, if it's a single mom or a single dad and them having to work all day. Have you guys looked more into that?
Yeah. So yes, we have actually. So one of the things that we're, you know, continue to do, and again, now that we're bringing things to the board and working on an actual plan, you know, and I've told several of the admin team that, you know, depending on the vote tonight and the outcome of tonight, the real work starts tomorrow. You know, we've been putting together, you know, a scenario of plans, you know, to meet the roadmap needs. But the reality is, it's, you know, as I said earlier, it's go time. You know, pending this vote, starting tomorrow morning, the phone calls come, the meetings start, and getting, you know, we've drafted a great letter, you know, through the office to start to highlight different areas for our teachers as well as our community and what the next steps might be. But these are the times that we're going to take the time to start looking at other options. You know, there was a great question, you know, from Mr. Shearer earlier about the shop classes. We've had discussions, you know, with the APA, and they've been a great partner of trying to come together and be creative. And how can we do things a little bit differently? If we do have a classroom that is large enough that we could socially distance, could we host something? You know, what would that look like? You know, pods, you know, and looking at pods, and Dr. Tofelsky's researching that. And he's got some colleagues who are offering information on that and what that may look like. So again, you know, all things are on the table. You know, this opens the door now to become creative and again, meet the needs of Allen Park. And we always talk with all of our neighboring districts, you know, and I'm constantly in contact, as I said earlier, with all the superintendents. Dr. Tofelsky's always with all his curriculum directors. And then we've got the admin team, of course, you know, looking into scenarios as well. So, you know, we're looking into pretty much everything.
I think that it was important too that we, you know, like Mr. Darga said, we took our time, we listened to what people said, and now we can get to work on a unified plan tomorrow. So many districts were putting out plans in May and in June and in July, and then redoing plans. And, you know, there are several districts that put out plans last week, and then this week it's like, hey, remember that plan that we put out that we had 160 stakeholders on and we got all this parent input, and well, we're scrapping everything and we're doing a whole new plan. And so I think it was important that we took our time and that we were deliberate. We listened to the parent concerns. We have a unified plan, and now we can say, like, okay, let's work on this one unified plan instead of the alternative, which was rushing into a plan that wasn't wasn't fully thought out, didn't meet the needs of our community, wasn't safe for our students. And then we had to work on a different plan to get to a different plan to then finally have a unified plan. So I think that that's really important that we have a unified plan. Then tomorrow is where we say like, okay, this was something that was palatable by the board, and we can move forward with it.
Yeah, I do appreciate the time that you guys put into that. I know I've gotten a lot of text messages like, why is Allen Park taking so long to decide? Why is the district, dragging their feet? But it's not dragging our feet. I can promise you that. It's such a hard decision, and it's an impossible choice, no matter which way we look at it. So I appreciate the work all of you guys have put into it, especially you teachers. Like, I thought it was really cool hearing Mary and her ideas of what she did with her AP class. I wasn't in it, so I didn't get to see it. So, I thought that that was really neat as well. Also, every day, I just want to let you guys know I have gotten all of your emails. They started coming in when I was on vacation. I tried to respond to everybody, and it did get a little overwhelming, but I did read them all. I didn't have time to respond to them all. But for every email I got with concerns about going back, I got text messages and Facebook messages about concern about their kid not being face-to-face. So for every person who sent me a document on absolutely not, this is why we shouldn't go back, somebody else sent me another one saying, here, look at this, here's the data, right? So I'm telling you, I've looked at everything until I was dizzy. I think I have high blood pressure right now. So just everything, I've looked at it and I've addressed it. And I know my board members have too. So I want you guys to all know we did listen to everybody's concerns. I have so many. I even had a meeting with Dr. Tofelsky and Mr. Darga just about all my concerns, having 3 young children, and how is this even possible? So I addressed so many questions at that meeting. Like, how is this going to be even equitable? Right? Like, how is this virtual education even going to be equitable? But I do understand that shipments, they're not all in yet. And I do understand that shipments are coming in daily. As a business owner, I know how long it took to get things in. I still have like 4 things on back order. So I do understand that as well. And I want our kids and our staff to be as safe as possible. And make sure that we have these things in. I feel our kids need to be face-to-face, without a doubt. I don't think many of you disagree with that. I did hear all the way too about special ed, but what about our preschool? I didn't hear anything about that. I see you, Sean.
So preschool is it's governed by LARA. It's licensed as a child care facility. So our preschool, we would be planning on opening the preschool because we treat it the same way as like a daycare. That's how it's licensed. It's not really, so it's kind of a separate entity. Yeah.
Like, even if the building's not completely ready or the shipments aren't in of the cleaning.
Well, it's a little bit different animal because the preschool kids, they're there for 2.5 hours. So they're there, they come in the building and they go right into the classroom. There's not really any transitioning they don't go to lunch. They're not moving around the building. The only thing they do is they go outside, they walk around the building into the courtyard, and then they go back. So they're there for 2.5 hours.
Will they be required to wear masks?
So the governor came out with another executive order earlier, middle of last week, saying that anyone over 2 has to wear a mask if they're on the bus, which they don't ride a bus, or if they're in a common area, then it's required. So what it will look like, and we've got some other things on our license. So we would have to do temperature checks as part of our license. And they're going to have to come to preschool wearing a mask. Once they get checked in, scan the temperature, parent will ask them some questions. And then once they're all been checked in, then the teacher will walk them to their classroom. And at that point, once they're in the classroom, masks are strongly recommended. They're not required. And so that's what we would say to our parents. Staff is of course going to have to wear them.
Will there be smaller class sizes?
The class sizes right now, they're kept at 20, so it's a 10 to 1 as far as the ratio. And two of the classes, then the smaller, the younger kids on the 2-day program are at 18.
And you do know preschoolers put everything in their mouths, right?
Yeah, so we've also went in the classrooms and we got rid of some of the stuff that you can't wipe down. So like any like fabric, stuffed animals, anything that's wooden or porous, we're going to take out and put plastic stuff on. So things that can be sanitized in between the classes.
And these are still things that, you know, that we'll be meeting on again, you know, as you know, the week progresses, you know, we still have to go through all of our programs just to kind of go through almost like what I had told even our focus groups, you know, that when we had our last meeting, it's like we still need to kind of form and reformulate, bring some of our focus groups back together and get more input. You know, going through these next couple of weeks, again, we may need more parent input on that, what that may look like, just like we may be bringing in a focus group for our special education students, you know, and getting that voice of what will that program look like. So some of these things, you know, on these programs, you know, there was even talk about, you know, how can we better assist some of our own staff members who may have kids, and what could that look like as essential workers? You know, should we just use essential worker staff and kids in that program? So there's still some things to kind of work through, and we'll make sure that we keep you guys updated on that as also.
Yeah, I think for me, just to be honest, it's hard to make a vote when I don't know all the full plan. You know, I hope you respect that from me.
Oh, yeah, that's hard.
It's great to ask questions because we do offer, you know, I mean, as a comprehensive school district, we do offer so many different programs. We have, you know, Young Fives, we have preschool, you know, and then our K-12 education and latchkey and all those different things. And so it's great to hear, you know, that there are options and you know, as Sean talks about, not everything is governed by the MDE or you know, by the you know, the traditional rules that we think. So you know, as we're working through our focus groups and stuff, that those are certainly how will those services, all of those questions will be answered. I think that's really important.
All right. Well, I think I beat Pat and Mike. So sorry, guys. Thank you both.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Warren. We'll move on to Mr. Moynihan.
Okay, hello everybody. It's kind of good going later in the discussion because I think all of my questions have been answered. A lot of good concerns. Very impressed with the work that's been done. We can certainly see no one's taking this lightly, and it seems to me everyone's stepping up, doing as much as they can. I hate to say it, but it's kind of like the budget. We always have to vote on the budget, and we don't know what we're getting either. So it seems like our burdens are always votes that we not sure which way it's going to go. But I think with the information that we have, it's a good plan, and I'm again impressed with the teachers and administration for taking the time needed to come up with a plan that seems to be workable right now. I will note with Jennifer, I'm all for getting people back into schools, and I'm sure everybody is, but I just want to make that clear as soon as possible. And with that being said, when's our next in-person board meeting?
Yeah, that's a good question.
So I'm going to give Mike Clem.
Anything else, Mr. Moynihan?
I'm going to give Mike a big hug.
No, that's it. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Moynihan. Mrs. McDonald.
All I can say is good thing so many went before me because I actually have 4 pages of notes. Right there, but a lot of them have been answered, but I'm going to focus on the ones only that haven't. All right. I was very impressed with what Adriana and Mary McMaster had to say in terms of their preparations for online learning, and that would allow for the seamless return of kids to face-to-face. Okay, so that said, why are we still considering third-party options like E2020? Having had experience with that at the high school level, I know where a lot of the shortcomings are. I have some serious concerns about that. And I just, like I said, I'm really encouraged by what I'm hearing from our teachers. And I think that offers a great deal of flexibility. Now, I know what you're going to say, John, and that is some parents are opting to keep their kids out all year long.
Correct.
You and I had a conversation, but there's a cost to these programs, and I don't think the transition back into the classroom would be quite as easy or smooth for those students.
It would not be.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that
no,
said,
right.
have you explored the option of giving stipends to teachers, the classroom teachers, because it would be an additional duty. What if and when we go back to face-to-face, for them to continue with a handful of students perhaps that are needing online still.
So yeah,
that's something I would like for us to consider, just because it gives the parents, the children, the students the option of more seamlessly coming back to the classroom setting.
I think that's that's part of what we're talking with as we continue with the plan. We've had a lot of great conversations with Mr. Berkey, and then obviously other members of the APEA and the APEA executive board, and then even Mr. Scott from the MEA, to talk about how we can incorporate our teachers more into it. And we had a really good conversation with Mr. Berkey earlier today about kind of a way to work towards that solution where Allen Park teachers were more involved. And I think we have definitely have a workable solution where we're able to work with our APEA and we're able to offer kids the classes that they would like to take and kind of keep them connected to school. That, I think, Ms. McDonald, you mentioned that you and I talked. The intention was never to circumvent the APEA or do anything underhanded. It was always, how can we provide the most consistent learning opportunities for our students? How can we minimize class sizes? How can we do all of those things during this pandemic? And after we went for days and weeks and months talking, we, Joel and I and Mr. Darger finally kind of had this conversation, and Joel was like, well, did we think about doing it this way? And I was like, no, why don't we look at that a little bit more? And as we're looking at some of those options that he's talking about, I think that there certainly is a way. I don't know that necessarily it's throw everything out. I don't want to give that impression that all of a sudden we're just going to be going with our APEA teachers for everything, because there are some unique requests some of our parents had where they have said, if I'm going online, K-12 online offers underwater basket weaving, and I'd like that class. And so I think there's going to be something where we can say, can we get one of our teachers to be a mentor and to act in a capacity so that we can facilitate your experience in the course that you want, but also use an APEA member. So, I think that's the important thing.
And it is, and I also think it's important, though, just to realize that, we've got, 7 different districts around us that are in the exact same shoes we're in. And so we reached out to those, those superintendents as well as those curriculum directors to find out how are they better utilizing their staff, or how are they creating a program, that utilize their staff as well as their curriculum. And so we're in constant contact with them, with Wyandotte, D7, Lincoln Park, and others. I was on the phone with Mr. Scott just this morning. He'll be calling again tomorrow at 3. As John said, Mr. Berkey's been vital. He's come up with some great ideas. Again, using the prep period was one of them. And that's something we've done in the past. That's something that's like, we've done that. That's already established. We've got staff members that meet those needs. We've got staff members that also have compromised immune systems that could be a great fit for things like that instead of coming back into return. So there's a lot of things that are on the table, and I think that's the important thing of looking at these next several weeks of kind of working with us. One of the things that I've got to show some appreciation to is just the fact of the members of the APA and Joel Berkey himself of giving us the flexibility. To say, hey, listen, we've worked well as a team, for many, many years, and we continue to grow stronger as a team. And to be able to have that flexibility to say, hey, listen, we're as a unit, we're going to trust that the administration is going to bring this to the board. The board's going to vote on a plan, knowing not everything's been worked out. And that could have been a fail-safe. That could have been something like, hey, we're not comfortable with this. We could have, made a lot more phone calls or whatever. And that's not what happened. So they're entrusting us that we're going to continue to work as we have, in good faith, together, and again, we've got a scheduled meeting coming up, a Zoom with the four people here, and to kind of work through that. So I do have a good feeling. I do think we're going to come up and create a plan that works and meets the needs of both of our parties. So I think that'll work out real well.
Great. Well, I appreciate hearing that because, well, the fact that you're working together, I just think it's going to make it a more robust program all the way around, obviously. But, in the board briefs, I read that over $30,000 or around $30,000 was spent in training this spring, to get teachers familiar with all the online options and that. And I would kind of hate to see that go to waste.
Right.
No, I mean, that's going to be an integral part of the remote instruction that Mary and Adriana were referring to. So starting online or shifting to online, it's definitely not going to go to waste. Yeah, that's going to be a huge, huge component of it.
Well, I feel very relieved to hear that, with our teachers' preparation, that the kids can migrate to face-to-face or online as the situation demands. I mean, then we're not caught behind the 8 ball. I like that. The Friday thing for the secondary. Okay, it's different than the elementary thing. Are students required to participate on Friday? I mean, how does that work? I know that you had a lot of different activities lined up with social workers, counselors, perhaps, things like that. But, are students really required to check in? Or are the personnel, our staff required to check in with the kids?
Yeah, that's like the key right there, what you just brought up. And I think that's the biggest thing. So when we start to meet, with these smaller groups, social workers and counselors and things like that, whether it's a Zoom, that's on the agenda of like, okay, now that we've created this schedule, is it really workable? That schedule that we've tweaked has been out and shared by, multiple districts, around the state, if not even other states. And then schools have kind of adopted it to meet their needs. That doesn't mean that Friday has to look that way for Allen Park. And if it does, that it's in place. But the reality is, until we hear from the people utilizing that Friday block, we don't really know if that's met their needs. That's something that our groups had come up with. We see it as a benefit. But again, until we get our social workers together and whoever may be utilizing that block, and how can we better serve to make sure they're utilizing it? And I think, again, can we really mandate any student to be there? That'll be tough in an online format.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that goes to the, kind of goes to the heart of making sure that we've covered all our bases and talked to as many stakeholders. That came up as a need, the social emotional health of students. Right. But then it goes to the other part that, we have to be concerned with on the administrative standpoint of people accounting and accountability and all of those things that we have to look at. So I think that it's one of those things where that could look different. But as the groups were talking about it, and then even as we were talking to the APEA, because they brought up, kind of the idea that it's different between K5 and 6-12. If you talk to a K5 teacher, they'll say like, well, why don't we get that Friday off? You talk to 6-12, they'll say like, well, I'm prepping for 5 different classes and I had 5 Zoom meetings and you only had to do 1. And so rather than getting into all of that, we just want to make sure that we listen to the community, we listen to the teachers, and we have the ability to do that. And then if it does not meet our needs, we can, pretty quickly switch where that would just become another 1, 2, 3 block day. And then you might have like an odd even week kind of a thing.
Does it count towards the 180 days?
So it can, because of the 5-0-A. So if they have assignments, there are mentor logs that we can take, and it does not have to be. I don't want to quote the wrong thing on the mentor log, so I don't want to quote it. But yes, it can. But there have to be specific. We have to be specific about what's happening on that day, and students and teachers all have to be on the same page there.
Yeah,
so it can.
Days and hours requirement with that.
Yep.
To be honest.
Mrs. McDonald, I'm not going to let that one slide by. I still remember our 5 p.m. meeting in your office a couple of years ago.
Okay, good.
Jeanette, if I could chime in real quick about that Friday. One of the things that the secondary task force had said was that we wanted to define better what that Friday would look like, and that teachers would absolutely be available. And so that is something that whether you're workshopping a paper or whether you're having AP chemistry students attend an extra study session because they, teaching an AP chemistry class that only meets twice a week, or all of those things, I think where we started was the secondary teachers would absolutely be available to help the students. And we hadn't gotten so far as what that would actually look like, but that was part of what we were discussing, yes.
So they don't actually have that day off, they have to be available.
That is not a day off. In our, well, we didn't get there. It's definitely not a day off for teachers. And we were hoping to come up with a structure that meant it was also not a day off for students. But all 5 days would definitely be days on. The idea too, when you're teaching in those 2 days a week, that there would be some learning that students would be completing on their own. That would also be a time for that Friday to happen as well.
Okay, thanks, Mary. We haven't talked about this, I don't think, but are teachers required to teach from their classrooms, or will they be from home still? How is this working?
So we're still kind of working through some of those scenarios right now, and I'm working with Joel and the APA kind of what that may look like. We are looking though to bring staff in, and I'm talking all staff. We're looking at not just teachers but our secretarial staff and everybody involved, K-12. It may not be a full 5 days. It may be just 2 to 3 days a week. We do think that the environment is conducive. Obviously, their classrooms are set up. They have all the materials needed. They're able to properly social distance. It makes sense. And I know we've got several staff that have expressed, opinions both ways. But that's something that we'll continue to kind of work through, and maybe even tweak as needed. But I do think that there's a lot of, resources available for our staff to be on site. And I am a proponent of it. I think it's important that we do offer that. And again, it's something that we are continuing to, discuss and working through. But that is part of the plan.
Okay, thank you for that. And some of the questions that came up, and I'm sure this will require further discussion as well, but if a teacher has to be quarantined, what happens to his or her class?
And those are the things that we had mentioned earlier, in an earlier discussion. We'll follow the Wayne County Health guidelines that they've put out in their document. But again, that's something that we've not dealt with and faced with. We're still trying to figure out also how will that work with their sick days. Obviously, and that's all part of the same document. And there's several different guidelines available that we'll be sharing even starting tomorrow to the staff through the HR department of how this will look. People are asking about bank days and if they wanted to take a leave. So we're kind of, and again, Joel and I are in constant contact about all of these issues, making sure we're on the same page and how we, move forward. The important thing is how we communicate to the staff, but there's several different, sites available online that we'll be sharing. And I think it's important that the staff also educate themselves, that they look through that information and just better educate in how this would work, but there is FMLA, there is new areas for the COVID, up to 80 hours and up to 2 weeks, so there's lots of different variables. We just got to figure out which would meet by a case basis almost.
Okay, is that what you're talking about in the notes? There was mention of emergency paid sick leave. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I think it's FCRA is what it's called.
Yeah.
So yeah, and your comment about teachers and what happens to their class, Jeanette, is a great one because Wayne County Health Department's guidance talks about close contacts, and so we would be asking teachers to say who were you in close contact with, which is within 6 feet for more than 15 minutes. And so depending on that answer, that would dictate what would happen to that class and those kids, and then their siblings, and then the right guard on the football team is right next to the right tackle on the football team, and then he is in a class with we see where this goes. So this is why the recommendations are what they are from the committees.
Okay, so you guys did a very good job of explaining synchronous versus asynchronous. Thank you for that. And you're working through the positive tests and quarantine issues. And you're still working on the virtual providers?
Correct.
Yes.
Because I do believe that in one of the government mandates, you can't violate the CBAs, right?
Correct.
So,
Correct.
yes, well, I'm glad you're working with them then.
Yeah, we are too.
Yes, good, good. That's what makes Allen Park great.
I agree with you. Yeah.
Thank you. That's it.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs.
Sorry.
McDonald. Let's move on to Mrs. Flipiak.
Hi, I first want to commend the team. You guys did an awesome job. I have 2.5 questions. Jeanette asked half of one of my questions. My first question is, could you clarify for me on the elementary schedule how much of that learning is going to be delivered via an action, like the teacher sitting in front of the kids on the Zoom, as opposed to them just recording it? It wasn't clear, like under the English language arts piece. Could you explain that up further?
So in those blocks, Kathy, you want to go ahead and take it? Sorry.
Well, I mean, I can say what I was going to say is I would envision it similar to how it looks in a classroom is, a 15-minute lesson, mini lesson, or a little bit less in a, maybe a younger classroom, and then breaking off into those small groups. So theoretically, as they break off, then the teachers will have a schedule they'll share with families, and families will then know when their child is supposed to get back on. And then during that off time, then kids will be working on independent, doing some reading independently, those kind of things. So it wouldn't be necessarily they're sitting there that even, 35 minutes necessarily. And then obviously coming back together and doing wrap ups and things like that.
And I think that, as we were trying to define times, one of the things that we heard from parents, similar to, a lot of us in this room, if I'm at work all day and I missed the lecture, what the heck do I do then? So we wanted to make sure that there was some asynchronous time so that when Dr. Jen gets home from her long day, she can watch a video on, carrying the one, and she can then work with her kids on how to carry the one. That's a little inside joke there, a little teacher humor for you. But, Sarah, to your point, we think that about 4 hours will be live instruction. Kids will not be present for all 4 hours. They will be popping in and out depending on their group. And then there will be about an hour of asynchronous work. And one of the things that I think was in the plan that we, talking to the teams about is think of those asynchronous moments or those asynchronous videos as learning targets and your can-dos for your kids. And can you create little 8 to 10 minute snippets based on your can-dos for your kids that at the end of the day, Dr. Jen could come home and say like, okay, I see what these 3 or 4 learning targets are. I can hit this real quick. And then I can work through any issues with my kids. So there would be that opportunity for both pieces during the day. Maybe a little bit different on one day or the other, but we did want to make sure that there was that was something that parents, community members, and all 750 people out there watching on YouTube, believe me, we heard that loud and clear. You wanted options for asynchronous learning for your children. Please understand that. So we're going to make sure that that is something that happens with our teachers. And again, to Mike Klein's point, a lot of teachers did a really nice job on it. There were some teachers that had things posted at the beginning of the week. They just kind of hit the ground running. And so we want to replicate that across our entire district. Hope that answers, Sarah.
It did. Thank you very much. My other question is, so from what I understood from what you said earlier, students with IEPs who are going to need things like OTPT, visual, like TC services for visual and hearing impairments, those decisions are still being made where that service will be delivered?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then my last half question is just is more of a comment at this point, just concern for FTEs with the high school schedule. I know that's very sketchy right now with some of the legislation or the talked about future legislation. So I would be interested in hearing more about that.
Yeah, Kathy Andrews won't let us miss 1 minute of our 1098 and 180 days. So, we have plenty of backstops. And yeah, it's outrageously important to us. I mean, we want to make sure that we comply with everything to the letter and really to the best of our ability to the spirit of the rule as well. And that's something that's changing and depending on, I sat in on an Oakland County people accounting thing, and it was not the same as the Wayne County people accounting thing. And then the MDE one was different from the two of those. And so we're going to make sure that we try and comply, that we're going to hit that circle, the Venn diagram of all three of them.
Okay, awesome. And again, I just want to reiterate what an amazing job the team has done, and great work to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. They were awesome.
Okay, Mrs. Flipiak, the benefit of having gone around the horn already and going last is that just about all the questions have been answered, at least the questions that we know that are questions as of this point. There will be questions that will be coming down the road that none of us know how to ask yet. We know that for certain. I did want to ask one question though, and that was about, has there been discussions about utilization of parapros, FTK aides, breakout rooms, just things like that? Have there been discussions along those lines about how best to use their time and abilities to supplement and really make a robust, if we are, or when we are in our virtual protocol, how do we utilize their talents to make it as robust as possible?
Yeah, and again, great question, Gordon. And those are part of all of our discussions. Also, one of the goals in Allen Park is to maintain, all staff. Our goal is not to release any staff at all. Utilize everybody, and how can we better utilize those staff members during this virtual experience? And I know Dr. Tafelsky is working with the building principals, and we'll continue to work with our directors also on how we can best serve our teachers. What can that look like? Also, as Mr. Shearer brought up, are there ways to have small groups in buildings, different things of that nature for those who need something different? What could that look like? We could set up mentor teacher type roles. So those are things that are still being discussed and still trying to figure out, and also looking at other schools and how are they utilizing those same staff members to what capacity. So again, that's something that still needs to have some finishing touches on and work through.
Okay, thank you. I think that a couple of things that virtually everybody would agree on. Number one, we want to be back face to face. Public education is what we do. That's what we are good at. In this district, that's what we're great at. And I think everybody absolutely shares that goal and believes that that's the truth. I think everybody would also agree that when we do return, it needs to be safe. We certainly cannot put students or staff in harm's way by returning them to the classroom prematurely without having a plan fully thought out and implemented. Look, we're trying to make the best of a bad situation at this time. I do want to thank the focus group, obviously, a really big effort as always. The greatest asset in our district is our people, and they've come through again. Thank you all for your time and efforts for not just on the plan, but for being here this evening and to stay on this, what to date has been a fairly long board meeting. But this is the better amongst bad options at this point until we've got further learning as part of this process. So thank you to everybody for that. It's certainly not perfect. We certainly know this plan as presented tonight and the questions that they've generated are not final. Probably the most important part of the plan is that there will be adjustments down the road as we learn about this. We may learn pretty quickly that, hey, you know what, we have the ability to maybe about face and get back in before 5 weeks are over. We may learn that we have to extend it. Who knows? But we will have to be flexible with each other, understanding with each other, and work for a common goal of returning safely and providing a robust education for our students. So with that being said, the last thing I'll say is I do want to look for silver linings in this. One of the silver linings is if a vote goes a certain way tonight, we'll be in a position to provide one-to-one technology going forward. I think that's a silver lining. I don't think it's a cure-all, but it certainly is a silver lining that we can look to take away from this as something that we will benefit from. And staff technology upgrade certainly is always a good thing as well. So I'm looking for the good parts to come out of this, knowing that there's an awful lot of bad parts that came out of it. So with that, we've talked about that one for a long time. So unless anybody really has something else to add, I'd like to call the vote on that one.
Hey, Gordon, I'm sorry to do this to you, but I got like 5 slides that goes through my logic on how I'm going to vote. And I don't know if you think that would be helpful or if that's, I don't want to stretch it out too long, but this is a biggie.
You know what? I think your time probably was when you had your time, but go ahead and do it. For the next votes, if you've got something, do it during your time.
Okay. Well, plus everybody asked more questions than me, so I got to get back on top. So anyway,
I don't know if Pat's able to share his screen.
You muted yourself, Pat.
Pat, you're muted.
Unmuted.
Pat, I don't know. Are you able to even share your screen, Pat? I don't know if you have that.
Oh, man, you guys, good job. You planned ahead on that one. So anyway, so I guess we won't be doing that.
Okay. Any other questions you want to ask then, Pat?
No, other than I went into this saying we should go back to school now. And after meeting with Mike and John and Gordon, I really have changed my mind to, I like the delayed approach. If we're going to go back in person robustly, we need a little more time. There's a lot of details to work out. That's it.
Thanks, Pat.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Shearer. Okay. So, Mr. Darga, I'll turn it over to you for a proposed motion.
All right, very good. The suggested motion that the Allen Park Board of Education has reviewed the COVID-19 preparedness and response plan, and after great care and thoughtful consideration, determined that the best course of action for the Return to School Plan 2020 is to begin the school year online for the first 5 weeks and evaluate data at that time to determine if it is safe to return to in-person instruction.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. It's been moved and supported. For those who are watching their first board meeting, ordinarily we go around now for commentary, but this one we kind of turn that about face so we can spend plenty of time on the topic. So unless anybody really has anything else, let's call the vote on it. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
I honestly I don't know if I have enough information to vote either way. To be honest, I love my Allen Park Public Schools, and I'm so sorry, guys. This is insanely difficult for me. I hope you guys all understand that I take complete heart in everything I vote. I think the fact that we don't know our safety protocols yet completely. I'm sorry I'm delayed, but due to that, because I want to make sure our kids and our staff are safe. I'm so sorry for delaying it, Gordon, but I will say aye as well. I'm sorry about that.
It's no problem. These are not easy votes, I understand. And Mr. Shearer, I apologize to you that we did not know you wanted to share your PowerPoint ahead of time. Next time, let's make that happen, okay?
Sure.
Okay. Moving on, Mr. Darga, we have got the next item agenda.
So number two.
Number two, purchase of electric devices for students.
In light of the imminent virtual learning, whether for long-term or sporadic classroom or school closing due to virus outbreak, administration had strongly advised moving quickly to offer a one-to-one electronic device initiative for students. The data from the June parent survey also indicated that many families were not prepared for multiple users on a family device for delivery of virtual instruction. All students and staff will need access to devices and connectivity to successfully engage in both our Return to School Plan 2020 as well as our full online option. We will make sure that all students have what they need to begin the school year. Mr. Mahalik and the tech department have been researching companies through the REMC bid award list for available Chromebooks at best pricing. Due to high demands, many vendors cannot deliver in time for school going into November or December. Per the quotes included in the board materials, Firefly has presented an offer to honor the REMC bid pricing and has 1,150 devices in stock. The remainder of the delivery in September to October. The quote is for a total of 2,750 Chromebooks. Total cost with licensing is $720,935. If the district utilizes capital outlay enhancement funds, we would deplete approximately 75% of that fund. Firefly had offered financing, but the interest rate was too high. Ms. Keith reached out to a couple banking institutions to finance this one-to-one device initiative, and Huntington National Bank has submitted an interest rate of 2.25%. CARES Act funding can be used to fund this purchase. Ms. Keith is present this evening to answer any questions regarding the financing, this initiative, and Mr. Mahalik is also on standby should any board members have any questions regarding researching and securing our quotes. The suggested motion that the Allen Park Board of Education approves the purchase of 2,750 HP Chromebooks from the Firefly Computers in the amount of $720,935, and further that the resolution authorizing Allen Park Public Schools to enter into an installment purchase agreement to finance the cost of the devices through the Huntington National Bank be approved as presented.
Support.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear who moved on that.
So moved.
Okay, we got Mr. Moynihan with a move, and then Dr. Warren, is that a support from you?
Yes, it was.
Okay, thank you. Let's move forward with questions on this one. Start with Mr. Klein.
Yeah, Tiffany, will you walk us through a little bit of the installment purchase agreement? So what does that mean? We're borrowing $720 for as long as we need to. Obviously, it's got some term. What are the terms on that?
So the installment purchase agreement, which is an IPA, is it's a 3-year term, and we make our payments annually with a 2.25% interest rate.
Okay, and then if we get CARES funding, we can pay it down earlier.
We do not have the option of paying down earlier. If we wanted that option, the interest rate would have been higher. Due to the unknowns with CARES funding and official guidance not being out yet, and with everything else kind of tallying up for all of our COVID needs, I thought it'd be better just to utilize the lower interest rate and pay the $245 annually.
Well, and I don't disagree. This sort of puts us into a fast track. We weren't always looking at a one-to-one from an instructional standpoint, but I think we are now. And so this puts us into a long-term plan for that. Adam, do we have any thoughts on what this might look like? So in other words, if we're going to go one-to-one now, we might as well go in one-to-one for the future, right? So we should be building in a lifetime on a Chromebook of, I don't know what they are, 3 years, 4 years. Have we thought about, is it 5? We're going to consider 5 years?
A useful life is 5 years.
Okay.
I think.
I hope that holds true. Do we have a plan? I mean, I know it's all happening fast, but in some ways, this is an opportunity. If we're going to go to one-to-one, I guess we got to figure out how to stay one-to-one and how do we make sure that we have a installment plan that continues, every 5 years or whatever it is. So that, is that in place? Is that something we're working on, Adam?
We do have a plan, actually. The way it's working is with the devices we have is they would get a device in kindergarten, and then they would get a new device in 6th grade because the time for Google and the devices last approximately 6 years. So every year we would only need to buy devices for kindergarten and 6th grade.
Okay. And what happens when kids drop them and break them? Do we have insurance plans, or do they have a forgiveness plan, or do we have do we bill parents? What do we do?
At this point, we don't have anything in stone, but the way we're looking at it right now is the first drop is on us. The second drop or any other damage would be on the family.
All right. And do they sign that is that something they sign when we pass them? How do they find that out?
That's going to be part of the acceptable use policy when they assign out the Chromebook.
Okay.
We're talking about what to include in the acceptable use policy, kind of almost a safety training for students, how we're going to ensure that all of that stuff happens. Mr. Donahue, our middle school principal, rolled out a one-to-one plan in his last district. So he had a lot of really helpful tips for us. And then Adam, of course, has been researching this as well. So I think we're going to be able to come up with a pretty robust plan on how we're going to make sure that everybody gets a device, everybody is safe with their device, and the district is covered as well.
Cool.
So you're saying they'll have the same device from 6th grade through 12th grade?
That is correct.
Yeah,
that seems optimistic, but okay.
It does seem like a long time, but the expirations on the Chromebooks are actually 6 years. So we're going to hopefully get that long out of them.
No, I understand.
And the devices we're buying, they're education devices, so they do have, they have rubber around them. They are a lot hardier device than what you would just purchase at home.
They're like tough. Okay, I know at work some guys have Toughbook computers, and you can drop them off the roof. But my kids haven't owned anything continuously for 6 years ever.
for 6 years, are they saying it will be able to be updated? Like I can tell you, my kid's iPad, like he can't load like Minecraft anymore because it's out of date. You know what I mean? So
yes, Google is guaranteeing the 6 years of updates.
Okay. do we have the infrastructure? Is there infrastructure needed to support all these once all these devices are out there and they're all online? I know you talked before.
We have just upgraded our wireless this summer with our Category 2 funds. So we have just replaced our entire district.
Oh, yeah.
So we are going to be in good shape with our Category 2 funds. And then next year we can look at Category 2 funds to do the wired infrastructure, so we can double up on that and make every access point a 2 gig access point.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome.
Mr. Chair, I don't want to cut you off. I will circle back to you, but I want to make sure that Mr. Klein has asked all the questions that he wants.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I'm good. The only thing is I will, and I'll bring this up later, but as we roll, I mean, right now, 5 weeks of virtual learning, it's great to have these devices in place. Once we get back to face-to-face, learning with a one-to-one environment it's a unique opportunity, and we'll want to think about how do we maximize that and how do we prepare our teachers.
100%.
There's so many things that we can do to help them be successful, and we can tackle those though when that occurs. There's other pending issues now, so I'll see it. I'm good. Thanks, guys.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Klein. Great questions as always. The silver lining is what I'm looking at going forward. What we're taking advantage of here, one-to-one. Dr. Warren.
Hi, sorry, I snuck one in there on you, Adam. I'm sorry about that. But thank you. It was just the pertinent time. Mike, you always do a great job, especially with what you do for a living. So you pretty much honed in on all of mine. But my one comment is how you were saying, for example, something that we can do to utilize these computers after we do get back face to face. I do know, like in the elementary, and I'm sure Kathy Lott can express hers about that too, but it was really neat how during the virtual, for example, my kids with their spelling words, there was a spelling city, for example, which would be really cool to be able to utilize when they're home, so I can get them prepared, help get them prepared. You know, like if they're face to face during the day, when they get home, it's one extra avenue, so I can help them be prepared for their test on Friday or Monday, depending on their teacher. So that was just comment. That's all. Mike, you did all the good stuff. Good job.
Okay, all set, Dr. Warren. Thank you. We'll move to Mr. Moynihan.
I think I'm good. I think I understand why we need them and where we're going to go with them. We're obviously going to be the owners of those books, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And I guess the other question is, after 6 years, can they be refurbished or are they just junk?
We're not going to be able to get much for them after the 6 years.
Okay, so we can't. Okay.
We're using the ones that are expired now in classrooms as spares. So like theoretically, that could be something that we do with them.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Moynihan. Mrs. McDonald.
Thanks for saving me till the last again. I'm concerned, Tiffany, about the money aspect of this, because I'm reading, you know, we're using enhancement money, which runs out in 21, 22, correct?
That's right.
So that at best would get us 2 years in out of this 3-year loan. But again, you know, the state's talking this year, they're giving us our foundation allowance, but we don't know going forward, right? I mean, is there any chance we're going to have to use this money for operating expenses or anything? Or, I mean, how confident are we?
Well, so
it's kind of scary.
Ironically, I've been a little comfortable only because we have a healthy fund balance. And I always go back to, like, these are the times when and why we need to have a healthy fund balance. And we all know it has not been our history before to have a healthy fund balance. But when you don't know what the state is going to do and you don't know what kind of funding you're looking at and you need things, like this is absolutely a need. We don't have, in my eyes, really a choice. And being a mom and 2 kids at home, I know the need for this one-to-one. So, you know, we may have to take stuff out of our fund balance, and we're just going to have to deal with that on a yearly basis. You know, every time we get a retirement, that's a savings of about 60 grand. So, I mean, we're having there's opportunities out there, and there's funding sources. Is it all coming from the state? Not necessarily. Is it all going to come from the federal government? Not necessarily. We just have to, be smart what we're spending, how we're spending, and why we're spending it.
Okay. I just wanted to hear from you basically on that because it's like right here. Oh,
yeah.
And I have a little observation for the students that are in 6 through 12. That's actually 7 years. Adam, is a computer going to last 7 years?
We should be able to get them all the way through. I mean, we've had the silver ones that long. We've had the blue ones that long. So the history of the Chromebooks, they kind of speak them for themselves. We've had those devices that long and haven't had that many issues. Okay, so it's not a definite, they're not going to last, but chances are real good with transporting them and things that the shelf life is going to be a little bit shorter, I would guess. There's a possibility, but I believe we're going to be okay. Okay. All right. Thank you. That's it.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. McDonald. We'll move on to Mrs. Flipiak.
I think it's a necessary purchase. We got to do it. That's all I've got.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And then lastly, Mr. Shearer.
I would just say, every crisis is an opportunity, and this is an opportunity to get to one-to-one earlier. So, like you said, silver linings. I want to compliment Adam on, he really does a lot with a little, and you seem to always get us the best price. And, Tiffany, good initiative on the refinancing. And I too have humongous money concerns, but that, the little balance sheet I saw today, when you're ready to go public with that, I feel much better than I did this morning.
Yeah, you and me both. I blood pressure raises and it goes back down, raises.
Yeah. But it was almost a wash. So I was really, that was huge.
Yeah, and then we do have that enhancement still for 2 more years. That's a huge help to us. So we have that in the back burner. So that's also important.
So the millage we voted for during the primary, that wasn't the enhancement millage. Oh, that was they were just getting us for parks or something. Oh man, I had all my kids vote.
Get them again in November, Pat.
Yeah,
November,
buddy. I had them all vote 3 times, so that mail-in thing. Oh man, okay, so November, got it. Oh, they'll be voting on that one for sure. Yeah, they're fired up. Okay, that's it.
All set, Mr. Shearer?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. One question, I'm assuming that by the time we hand these out to students, by the time they sign their acceptable use plan, we'll have some kind of knowledge about just basic tech support for people that need the tech support for something breaks or there's a small technical issue that can be addressed. We'll have something ready to be able to deal with those. That makes it easy for parents to have them either repaired or a tech check or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, Melvindale actually had a really nice little table that I think we should steal from them that essentially said, forgot a password to GoNoodle, here's who you contact. Broken keyboard, here's who you contact. Computer won't work, here's who you contact. I think we can very easily repurpose that so that not everything is going to Adam or the building principal or the classroom teacher.
Great. Thank you for that. It's a big number, but when Tiffany is supportive of it, somebody who ordinarily cringes at the thought of spending money.
You guys all know me so well.
I'm much more inclined to go along with the plan. I also do agree with Mr. Klein. When we have some form of return to normalcy, we should reevaluate this. I think 6 and 7 years for 2 sets of books is going to be optimistic, but let's get this now and let's address it as we go forward down the road. And with that being said, we've got a motion and support. Let's call the vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Mr. Darga, next item.
Purchase of HP Chromebooks for Allen Park Public Schools teachers. Again, all students and staff. Okay. Sorry, I thought I was muted. Sorry. Again, all students and staff will need access to devices and connectivity to successfully engage in both Return to School Plan 2020. AP teachers have also been surveyed regarding the need for an at-home device, with the majority expressing a need. There's also a strong presence for a Chromebook with a flip ability, as well as a touch screen. As mentioned earlier, there are high demand for electronic devices due to so many working and learning at home. The tech department was able to secure 213 HBook Chromebook devices for teachers used from Firefly, including the REMC bid list. The total cost of this proposal is $118,187. We anticipate CARES Act funding to be applied to this purchase as well. The suggested motion that the Allen Park Board of Education approve the purchase of 213 HBook Chromebooks with flip ability and touchscreen from Firefly Computers in the amount of $118,187.
Motion.
Support.
Okay, I heard Mrs. McDonald on a support there. It's been moved and supported. Let's go around the table on this one. We'll start with Dr. Warren.
I know this is a stupid question, but they all do have cameras on them too, Mike, right?
Yeah.
I sure hope so.
Right?
Yeah.
That's want to make sure. All right.
Good one.
Gotta check there.
Also, just as a point, I'm sorry, Dr. Warren, I don't want to cut anybody off, but we just got notice today that our ESSER funds, which is what we've been referring to as CARES Act, it has been approved for the purchase of these devices. So we don't anticipate that anymore. We now know that our ESSER funds will be used to pay for these devices should they get approved.
Awesome. Tiffany, I should expect a bigger smile on your face right now. All right, good. All right, thank you.
Okay, moving on to Mr. Moynihan.
No comment at this time.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. McDonald.
I'm good, thanks.
All right, thank you. Mrs. Flipiak.
I'm good as well.
Mr. Shearer.
No comment.
Mr. Klein.
Only that I assume these are devices that teachers can use in whatever capacity, right? So they're using them, they can take them home with them, they can use them for, you know, for their life as well, but they're obviously owned by the district and mainly used for classroom devices, but they're also a device they can use personally.
Yep.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Klein. It's been moved and supported. We've all had a chance to comment and ask questions. We'll go ahead and call the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Dargan, next agenda item.
Number 4, purchase of student desk chairs for the elementary. Lower elementary furniture group table seats is designed for collaborative learning. In preparation for a safe return to in-person learning, Dr. Tefel has been working with elementary principals on a proposed for flexible seating shaped desk that will allow for more social distancing between students, but can later be configured into various collaborative learning arrangements. The furniture, 1,100 student desks and chairs, is available through Tyranny, also on the REMC bid list at a total cost of $299,625. Again, we anticipate CARES Act funding to be applied for this purchase. The suggested motion that the Allen Park Board of Education approve the purchase of 1,100 student desk chairs and caster sets from Tyranny in the amount of $299,625.
And just as a note, sorry, CARES Act, the ESSER funds again for this were approved. It was just a portion of the purchase, not the entire purchase though. And I have them up in my window so that everybody can see them. Continue, sorry.
You're saying just a portion of the expense was approved? What portion?
A portion will come from CARES Act funding or from ESSER funds. The remainder will be paid from our district funds.
We have a proposed motion. Did anybody move on that?
Move.
So moved.
All right, we've got motion and support. Let's go around and ask any questions anybody wants. We'll start with Mr. Moynihan.
You got me too quick there. Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I mean, as long as we can use them, after this COVID hopefully goes away or we find a vaccine, certainly something we need. What are we doing with the old desks?
So some of the tables will store to make sure that if people want them back, they can have them. But I think that once, I don't know if everybody got a chance to see them, but I think once everybody gets a chance to use these and see them, they'll definitely be interested in just keeping these, but we'll keep the tables in the event we need them. each of the desks will have a whiteboard top on them so kids can actually draw on them. So, take you into Mr. Victor's class and he says, all right, we're going to talk about force and motion. Everybody group up right on your desks and brainstorming thoughts. He walks around, he can see it. Kids can erase right on their desk and draw right on their desk. I was laughing with Mr. Darga. We said it moves us back to 1950 in rows and aisles right now. But then once COVID is over, it's going to move us forward into the 21st century with being able to do flexible grouping and flexible seating. And again, I'll put that up while you guys are talking in case people want to see it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Moynihan. Mrs. McDonald.
I think they look pretty neat, and will serve the purpose certainly of social distancing while we need to do that. So thanks for all your research on that.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Clipiak.
I love those whiteboard tops. That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
great. That's all I
Yeah.
have to say.
Okay, Mr. Shearer.
Just again, another opportunity. This is going to be a huge upgrade in the future. So at first I was shell shocked by 300,000. I thought, I can make them for that. But so I think it's a good purchase and a long benefits. So I'm all for it.
Thank you, Mr. Shearer. Mr. Klein.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of flexible seating, trying to figure out how to make that happen. My only question is, how do they help us in the COVID environment?
In many of our classrooms, we have tables where kids are right next to each other, or we have flexible seating where kids are just kind of in chairs and they're sitting around kiddie tables and stuff. So this will allow every child to have their own seat that can be as far apart as possible.
Plus, don't they all have to be facing front now, John?
They all have to be facing forward. Yep.
Okay, so I gotcha. So we have some classes that don't have a standard desk type situation.
Exactly.
What we consider a traditional classroom. Okay. You're going to have upper elementary teachers that are going to want a handful of these when the thing comes over. Is there a way to redistribute them at that time? When COVID's done and we can go back to, is there a way to move around?
Because we do have some teachers who have said, like, I really love my desk. Can I keep my desks or my tables? I mean, and so we'll look at that. And plus, I think all of us have an eye on May of 2021. And so this will give us the opportunity to try these out in a handful of classrooms.
Yeah. Okay.
This might be standard.
I don't know anybody in my family that would want a desk like that. So. The only concern the only concern I have is, and Tiffany, I'm looking to you to see if you're concerned yet, but we're putting a lot of money out there.
Yeah, we are.
Thanks. I'm good.
Dr. Warren?
Tiffany, you didn't answer. Are you concerned?
Oh, I thought he was just, I didn't know that was a question. Sorry. No,
it wasn't, but it is a question. Are you concerned?
Oh, I mean, again, like I know we have funding, we have resources available to us. I don't know what August state aid is going to look like. There's rumors obviously out there. A lot of stuff is unknown still. We're supposed to be getting more allocations for care funding. The official guidance is not out yet, so I do think we're going to get some more federal funding that's going to help with these purchases. For the time being, since we're buying things and we don't necessarily have that funding yet to us, we've just been backfilling with enhancement. So once those dollars come in and we get guidance on how we can actually spend them, then we can adjust, and put the money back to enhancement or however we need to do it. So this is year 5 of 6 for enhancement. We have $1 million from enhancement from 1920. We have the $4 million in our general fund balance. So we're in a good spot. Unfortunately, we're not going to be there forever because we have to spend it and we have to get these things. I mean, our kids need it, our staff needs it. So it kind of just is what it is. I mean, it's not going to put us in a deficit.
Yep.
There's another CREC coming for what funding for 21 looks like, but everybody's in the same boat. Everybody is, you know, having to buy things without knowing what funding looks like. So it's like, I kind of don't really have the opportunity to be stressed out right now. I mean, like behind the scenes, yeah, it's a little scary, but I know it's what we need to do and we'll make it work.
Okay, thank you. I do use these desks at the college level. They are absolutely neat. Mine don't have the whiteboard though. That is insanely cool. I did ask a couple questions about them because Dr. Tolfelski, if you pull that picture up, it shows you like the wire underneath the desk. And I said, oh, that's not going to work, especially at the lower L. There, you know, stuff's going to fall through it. And he said, nope, we've already ordered stuff for that. So like instead of that wire, I'm assuming it's going to be like that basket instead, which was great. My other question is, Adam, if you scroll up to the screen before, Dr. Tolfelski, so like the pole in the middle that has the outlets, will we be able to utilize those in the classrooms? So then when we go one-to-one, face-to-face, it's something that we might also be able to utilize.
Our rep from Tierney has already mentioned that, Dr. Warren. He has said, since you're buying these, can I interest you in some stand-up charging stations as well?
I see where your rep's going there.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I use them at the college level. They are amazing. I know it'll be difficult to get used to for some people, but once you start using them and moving around, you'll realize how neat they actually are and what you can do with them for small groups. Thank you. Thank you for all your hard work looking up all this detail.
Thank you.
You know, it's interesting. It does look to me like at least by the time you get to a certain age group, best practices do seem to be having these mobile ability on these desks to be able to reconfigure for different types of working groups. And I was taking a college tour, I think it was at Michigan State a year ago, and just about every classroom I went into had the old traditional single person desk with the desk in front of you, but they were on casters and could be rolled all over the place. And I think that this is probably a natural extension of that. So this is really, again, an opportunity going into the future. Happy we're doing it. So we've had an opportunity for everybody to comment and ask questions. So let's call the vote on it. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Targan, next item.
Number 5, consideration for district school registered nurse position. Well, we are grateful to have our Wayne Reese, nurse consultant, at our disposal. The on-site presence of a district-wide school nurse may be something we want to consider for the next school year to help serve as a bridge between the healthcare and the education system. There'll be multiple challenges for the staff and students as we return to in-person instruction and the daily presence of medical professional to address the ongoing impact of COVID-19 pandemic, to provide infectious disease surveillance, and to look after the physical and mental health of students and staff is a worthy, careful consideration. At this time, I invite the board to discuss the concept of employing the service of a school nurse through a third-party contractor. We have researched some potential companies as well as approximately hourly rates. The suggested motion that the Allen Park Board of Education approve the proposal to further research, interview, and employ a district registered nurse through a third-party contractor for the 2021 school year.
Motion.
Second.
Been moved and supported. We'll go around for any commentary on this one. We'll start with Mrs. McDonald.
Mr. Darga and I had a couple of conversations about this today, and one of my questions was, does it have to be a registered nurse? Because I know a registered nurse would command more money per hour than perhaps an LPN or certificated person. But I don't know what the parameters are for any of this. And I know that monitoring students, you know, for potential COVID until a parent picks them up probably doesn't really require a registered nurse. But I also know, having been in the position for many years, that on a regular basis, emergencies arise that, you know, are beyond that. And it would be handy to have somebody in-house, I suppose, to help out with that. Did you get any further information, Mike?
No, I do have a call into Wayne Risa, though. just to kind of give us a little bit more guidance on kind of, what is needed, as far as certifications go for a school. And when I find that, I'll definitely make sure I share that with the group.
I also contacted a person that teaches the CNA program to see if she knew anything about whether they could serve in that capacity or if they have to work under the supervision of a doctor or a registered nurse. So I'm waiting to hear back on that as well. Thanks.
Okay, all set. Mrs. Flipiak.
I have no comment.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Shearer.
Because it kind of makes sense with COVID and everything. So you're saying there is no actual requirement to have a nurse in a school system?
That's correct. Yeah, right now we utilize the nurse through Wayne Risa. And
Gotcha.
the problem we run into is that's one person for 32
Right.
different.
Sure. So how much would it? So hourly rates. So what are you looking at for a year? What do you think? What's the ballpark?
I think it ranges in for third-party vendors, depending on the hourly. I'd have to look that up, what we're looking at, and I can get that information to you. It depends also, there's also, if we end up not going third-party, we can also hire through, go on the APEA teacher contract, and that's also a way to handle that as well. But most of the nurses coming in, I would imagine probably run, between that $60,000 to $70,000 per year as an average.
I think it also depends on their educational level too, Mr. Miller.
Their level and their certification, and
Yeah.
I think that would be a real good estimate, just to kind of ballpark figure.
And then with them being for third party, we're just going to be paying for hours billed. So it's not, an entire day per se every day for the entire school year.
So if we had our halftime, we'd pay $35,000. I mean,
Give or take.
it's just another one for our COVID cost list.
Yes.
That's right. Add that up.
I had it on my sheet as 70,000. So.
Okay. So no, I think it's a good idea. I don't want to. Can we do? Is it year by year the contract?
Yeah.
Okay. I think this year is a good year to have one.
And there has been other schools, in the area that it's actually only posted for one school year.
Gotcha.
Right.
Don't we have to have a liaison with Wayne County Health and all that stuff too anyway? So.
Not with health. They say we've been using RISA. We do have the liaison officer through the Allen Park Police Department, which we've maintained.
Oh, I didn't know if we needed as part of the Safe Start requirements, we needed to add a position of a liaison, healthcare liaison or anything like that.
That's through the district itself.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
that's like the COVID you mean the designee?
Yeah.
COVID designee. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just
Okay.
I'll Pavelski to that or something.
Okay, no, that's all I got. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Shearer. Mr. Klein.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it would be nice to have. I am starting to worry about the amount of money we're spending. I guess I like the idea of researching. I'm a little nervous that we don't know all the details yet. That we don't know kind of really what it would cost and whether this is something we could do on a part-time basis, or if we, if it has to be a year contract. Do we know, have we looked at it? Has we talked to the APEA? What would their position be? Should this become a union position, or is this a third-party contractor?
Yeah, we prefer to, in the district has used third-party vendors in the past. The third party allows us a little bit more flexibility that if we don't see a need within a year or so, we can terminate that. And there has been also on the flip side of that, we have brought in third-party vendors, which worked out fantastic and has been a very big benefit to this. And then we've offered them the contract. So
I guess I'm hugely supportive of the idea that we research this and figure out what this really means. What does it really cost us? And do we have any hurdles at all, or is this something we can go straight forward with? Is the timeline too tight on that? Is this something we can research and formalize it in September, or is that pushing us too tight? Although our late opening helps us.
It does help.
Our late face-to-face opening.
And I think that's one of the things like we were, there definitely needs to be some more information found. Elise Grant has been doing a phenomenal job. She's actually reaching out to third-party contractors, gathering information in the office of what that would look like. What do contracts look like, as well as what schools around us are also using those same vendors. and how is that working out? So we are, kind of fact gathering at this time also.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Klein. Dr. Warren.
Everyone pretty much answered my questions. I was very interested in the fact that they might not have to be a registered nurse. I feel like they should be. So, that was a definitely interesting topic. But yeah, I feel like they should be a registered nurse, especially if we're paying them that much money.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Warren. And moving on to Mr. Moynihan.
I guess my question is, if it's a year's contract and we're doing the first 5 weeks online, we obviously won't need one then in-house. We don't know if in 5 weeks we're going to go face-to-face learning.
Correct.
I seriously think we're a little premature on hiring someone at the moment, especially at that rate. I don't think that it would. I don't think it would be that difficult to get a nurse when we needed it for a year's contract. I don't know. I think we're a little premature on this one.
No, and I understand that. I think one of the things that we dictate the start date, when that would happen. We also dictate when the posting would go out and how long the posting. So this isn't something that we would have to enact right away, knowing that we will be going into a 5-week delay. And as Tiffany said, it's an hourly paid, so it's only when they're within the school system, because it's a third party vendor. So that saves us money there. If they're not in the building and not working, they don't receive pay. So if we don't come back, let's say until October 5th, well then that would be their first start time if we chose to move in that direction. It does give us a little bit of flexibility, kind of make sure we put things in order. And also when we do hire, it does come back in front of the board, when we bring all of our new hires into the district. So I'm sure we will be bringing an update on a third party vendor as well to vote on.
I guess maybe I'm not quite sure what the motion is, because I'm just assuming we don't need to move to hire one now. Are you asking just to look into it? There's just too many unanswered questions.
Yep. That is the motion, is to look into it, to research it, but then also if the opportunity presents itself to employ. And the board has the right to say, hey, bring this back. Obviously, if the board feels that this isn't the right decision to bring it back in September, after we know more information, we can do that as well.
I for once for waiting to see what happens. We're spending a lot of money, and if we don't need to contract someone, if we're not going to be there.
Yep.
Hopefully we will be, but okay. Good for me.
You're muted.
There we go. I agree with some of the comments we've had regarding what we're spending, et cetera. I do think it's a good idea. Conceptually, I do think we probably are short some of the information we may need. I'm looking at the proposed motion here, and it's to further research, interview, and employ a district registered nurse. Look, I'm going to vote in favor of it because I don't know if there's a shortage of nurses or other things I just don't know about at this time. But I guess I would implore you that in the event we are able to get some additional information, that you bring this back at the next board meeting with something more substantive to pass as a whole at that time. Okay, that being said, there is a motion and there is a second, so we'll call the vote on it. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
No.
Aye.
Or aye.
Okay. You know what? If you were an aye, raise your hand for Mrs. Zerdowski to be able to identify myself, and it looks like Mrs. Flipiak. And it looks like we have, 5 nays? Yeah, okay. So, Mike, it looks like you're going to have to just bring that one back next month with more information.
Sounds good.
Gordon, does that automatically? I think, that was awkward, right? Because I'm with you in that I think it's a great idea. I really want research. I want more information. Does that just happen automatically now, or do we need a new motion that says, hey, please go? Do we need a motion to do research, or we just do that anyways?
So the way this goes here is that motion that was brought to us, it failed. I don't think there's anything preventing Mr. Darga and his administrative team from researching this topic. developing a plan and bringing it back to us in September to pass.
Okay. Yeah, because I got a sense there's interest in it. We just got to figure it out.
I agree. I think that's exactly right. So
Thank you.
a better clarity of plan next month, Mike, is what we're looking for.
Good. Yep. Thank you.
All right, move on to the next agenda item.
Number 6, Professional Development Advisory Committee, Teacher Professional Development 2021 school year. The instructional time requirement remains at 10,098 hours, and there continues to be a requirement to be in session, in person or online, for a minimum of 180 days. New last year, a district may count up to 38 hours of qualifying professional development time for teachers as hours of pupil instruction. If a host of requirements are satisfied, the complete list has been provided to the board members. We can ensure compliance with the complete list, but in order to satisfy the requirements, the board must appoint a district-wide professional development advisory committee. Rather than establish yet another committee, the district has been utilizing the ICC to fill this role. In addition, the district must approve the instruction for any online professional development. Dr. Tefelsky is present this evening if board members have any questions. Suggested motion that the Allen Park Board of Education appoint the Instructional Curriculum Council, ICC, to serve as the district-wide professional development advisory committee and grant the approval for the online professional development in order to satisfy all requirements for the professional development hours to be used to offset instructional time for pupils whose teachers participated in the professional development.
So moved.
So moved. Support.
Okay. All right, it's been moved and supported. Let's open it up for any questions. We'll start with Mrs. Flipiak.
I have no comment.
Mr. Shearer.
No comment.
Mr. Klein.
Yeah, no, I'm good.
Dr. Warren.
I'm good too.
Mr. Moynihan.
No comment at this time.
Mrs. McDonald.
It's been our practice, so no comment.
Okay, been moved and supported. Everybody had an opportunity to comment or question. Let's call the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Mr. Dargan, next item.
Student Code of Conduct 2021. The Student Code of Conduct was thoroughly reviewed and updated and subsequently approved by the board in January of 2020. This spring, the PBS district leadership team worked hard to align the disciplinary infractions in the code with the infraction listed in the MyStar and to create a PBIS reports. The team eliminated duplicate items, clarified items, and removed things that were no longer relevant. My thanks to the PBS district leadership team led by Ms. Sarah Metzger for their outstanding work. The Student Code of Conduct will be updated and on the district website for parent, guardian, and student review and reference. We will also update the code with the new Title IX policy language and complaint form as soon as the policy is adopted by the board. In addition, the COVID-19 addendum provided to the board will be included as page 1 of the updated Code of Conduct, which will incorporate guidelines and protocols received from the Wayne County Health Department. The suggested motion that the Allen Park Board of Education approve the 2021 Code of Conduct as presented.
So moved.
Support.
All right, it's been moved and supported. Let's go around the horn quickly. Mr. Shearer.
No comment.
Mr. Klein.
No, just thanks to the team.
Dr. Warren.
Second that. Thank you to the team.
Mr. Moynihan.
No comment.
Mrs. McDonald.
Thanks to the team.
And Mrs. Flipiak.
No comment.
None for me either. Thank you to the team that was involved with that. And it's been moved and supported. We've had an opportunity to discuss. Let's call the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Mr. Dargan, next item.
Number 8, Board Policy Title IX Sexual Harassment Policy, first reading. There has been sweeping change to the Title IX regulations effective August 2020. The new regulations bring changes in how to educational institutions address, investigate, and adjust allegations of sexual harassment occurring within their programs and activities. In addition to the critical roles of the Title IX coordinator, districts must also designate and train an investigator, decision maker, and appeals officer. Please note that Mr. Darga, Dr. Tefelsky, Dr. Sokol, and Ms. Moran are all scheduled for a full day of comprehensive Title IX training on August the 12th. In addition, all staff will receive more in-depth training, which is a 30 to 40-minute video during their scheduled professional development time. The Title IX sexual harassment policy is presented today for review as the first reading. While there may be a discussion if desired, there is no official action on this policy this evening. The policy will be presented at the September board meeting for the second reading and adoption.
Motion?
I'm sorry. So there's no motion on this item.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
But we will provide any commentary, just going around the horn. We'll start with Mr. Klein.
Yeah, no, I don't think I have any comments right now.
Okay, Dr. Warren.
I don't have any comments right now either.
Mr. Moynihan. Mr. Moynihan. Mrs. Flipiak.
No comment.
Mrs. McDonald, did I call you on this one?
Not yet, but I don't have a comment.
And Mr. Shearer.
What's the reporting mechanism? Like, do we have like a hotline or something, or a?
So there, and again, there's actually reports that that any employee can contact the coordinators. And again, we are going to, yeah, it's through a system. They contact us. We launch an investigation and all that. We will receive the training on the 12th. It's a new training. It's in depth, a full day, and then we will get a report back out in September.
Okay. Yep. I'm good.
Okay. Thank you. No comments from me. Moving forward to item 9 under the agenda, Mr. Darga.
Neola Board Policy, second reading adoption, Section 000 Bylaws, Section 1000 Administration. At the March 9th Board Work Session, Neola Board Policy, Section 0000 Bylaws and Section of 1000 Administration were presented for first read. Board members carefully reviewed the questions were submitted. Responses were sent to the board members on July the 13th. At that time, we are recommending that the first 2 sections of our Neola Board Policy Manual be adopted in its entirety. Suggested motion that the Allen Park Board of Education adopt Neola Policy Section 0000 Bylaws and Section 1000 Administration.
So moved.
Support.
Okay, it's been moved and supported. We'll go around for questions, but before we do, I do have to, if you've been involved with the committees on this or seen what's going on with shifting from our current board policies to this Neola policies, it has been an absolutely Herculean task. And Barb has had a huge role in that. So Barb, thank you for all of your continuing efforts on this Neola. It's been years in the making. So I haven't forgot about you. I know you've done huge work in this area. Thank you very much. We'll start off with Mrs. McDonald.
I agree, Gordon. Thanks, Barb. It's huge.
Yes.
Reading each section alone is very laborious, and thank you for getting my questions answered. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. McDonald. Mrs. Flipiak.
All right. I just thank you to Barb and no comment.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Flipiak. Mr. Shearer.
No, just same. It's a freaking monster. It's unbelievable. Yeah. And thank God for Barb. But I got through section 2. I don't know, Jeanette, did you want to go through it or did you already go through it with Barb?
I did not go through section 2 with Barb. I was waiting on you. So we can go through it.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks. I'm good.
Okay. Mr. Klein.
No, just a massive thank you to those on the inside. Just a quick protocol question. It really is a monster. For the people that can't see it, it's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of 8 by 11 pages with tons of technical information in there and language, and it's really valuable, and it certainly is important that we have it. We're diving into it, but we're going to miss some stuff, right? Every so often something's going to pop up, but we're going to wonder about it. What's the process as we down the road we find things like, ooh, that didn't work, didn't do exactly what we wanted. How do we amend, or is that just a process we do through a board meeting? How does that work going forward?
and I'll ask Barb to kind of help us out with that, but it is all part of the process. It does go through the board meetings. The things that we miss, or more importantly, that pop up in between, like even COVID, Neola does a fantastic job of giving us updates that automatically can get inserted right into the document. So we always do the board updates, but again, Neola kind of takes care of a lot of that for us. But if there's something that we need something special, we go right to our Neola rep and they work with us on that.
So it kind of grows on its own. It grows on its own, and then we approve it as needed as things emerge. And so it is kind of a living and breathing document that we continue to edit. Awesome. Thank you so much, everybody. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Klein. Yes, I can add to that real quick, Mr. Klein, having been involved with the committee of policies for almost 20 years now. Yeah, what normally happens is you have a new legislation, federal or state, county regulation, RESA, something that then generates Neola in this case to send us an update and say, here's our recommended how to do it. With respect to taking an existing policy and amending it, in fact, all the bylaws that we're passing now, all of the policies that we're passing now will in fact dictate how that happens as well. Typically, it's you bring it to the board, in front of the board, and the board votes to modify existing policies. So it certainly is something that can change and adapt with us over time.
Awesome. Thanks. I do have one more question, Barb. What are we going to do with all that shelf space where the binders were? Can I bring some stuff and store it there, or is that already accounted for?
The beer you're making.
Okay. We'll go to Dr. Warren.
I have no comment. Barb, you're amazing, because when you delivered that beast to my house, I wanted to hide under a desk for a second. So I appreciate it. And Mike, kudos to asking the question about how can we change it. And Gordon, bless your heart for being on policies for so long, because policies and procedures are such fun. Thank you so much.
Oh, it was a lot of fun last summer, spending weekly visits over to Riley Center, plunging through, a line by line items. But yeah, anyway, it's necessary, and it really is taking the district in a great way with updated policies. So thank you, Barb. And Mr. Moynihan.
Obviously, echo the sentiments of everyone for Barb's help. I was on a committee for a 3-month period. Luckily, someone took over that job when it got, I think, appointed or elected. So, yeah, it was a daunting job. Barb does just a fantastic job keeping us all informed and in line. And thanks, Barb. That's it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Moynihan. All right, it's been moved and supported. We've all had a chance to question and comment. We'll call the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Dargan, number 11, Superintendent's reports.
Congratulations. First off, congratulations to Michelle Cavilla, School Social Worker. Our very own Michelle Cavilla was selected as the Michigan Association of School Social Workers, MASSW, School Social Worker of the Year for Region A, which consists of over 200 members in compromised Wayne County, Monroe County, and parts of Washtenaw County. Michelle is now the candidate for the MASSW Michigan School Social Worker of the Year for the fall for 2020. This will be announced this fall. Ms. Calvillo is yet another example of uncompromising commitment to excellence in Allen Park Public Schools. We are very fortunate to have her. Congratulations, Michelle. That's it, Mr. Miller.
Agreed. Thank you. Well stated, Mr. Darga. Congratulations to Michelle. We will bring back Dr. Tefelsky for citizens' comments for non-agenda items under section 12 of our agenda tonight.
Mr. Miller, we do have a request just to take a quick break. We do have a request for just to take a quick break.
We need to recess?
Yeah,
how quick?
2 minutes.
No, let's do 5 minutes. Let's do 5 minutes. Let's call it 10:15. We'll recess until 10:15.
Okay.
All right, all the board members back? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think we're all back. So why don't we get started if Dr. Tofelsky's ready, or when he's ready. We'll call the meeting back to order. Barb, it's 10:15 for that.
Yep, I am ready right now. Okay, so we left off with Amy Crawford. As a parent of a special needs child, I urge you to consider in-person learning. All children cannot learn through virtual means. Kristen Chapman, I appreciate all the hard work the AP board has put into the decision. Thank you. With new cases with other schools opening, has the board considered this? What will happen with the online students in regards to school events? I don't want my child to go all day, but would let her attend events. Susan, I think the task force on racial equity is great, but I feel you're going to create an initiative about diversity and racial equality. You should have people of color and different ethnicities drive this. This is an anonymous one. Again, we are not going to read anonymous comments. Cindy Elster, do you know when and how school will be starting? Kathy Andrews, can you differentiate between 100% virtual and online learning? Let me make this a little bit bigger, sorry. Ed Kleinow, you mentioned percentage of respondents who chose virtual as their first or second choice. What was the percentage that picked in person as first or second? That would be informative. Mackenzie, how will our kids get our Chromebooks if there's only 400 per school? Jennifer Robluski, as a parent of a first grader, I'm very concerned with the virtual day-to-day schedule. Both my husband and I work full-time and also have a 2-year-old. Obviously, a first grader won't be able to do any of this on their own, and I now have less than 3 weeks to find someone that can support this virtual schedule, as we're unable to do this with 2 full-time jobs, and demand for childcare and private tutors is very high. Any suggestions for households with young children and 2 parents that work full-time? It doesn't seem like this was taken into consideration when this very specific daytime schedule was developed. Ed Kleinow, this is the same question about the percentage of people that picked first and second, people that picked online learning first or in-person learning first or second. Amanda, will the freshmen and incoming 6th graders have an opportunity to tour, looks like to tour the schools before they enter the building? Kristen Chapman, thank you to the task forces, board and staff and all those put efforts into this. Let me make this bigger, this is a little bit longer. All these thoughts have been destroying us parents. I don't want my child sitting in class with a mask all day. I also don't want her in front of a computer for 8 hours. I think the staff did this great in the spring and it was just thrown at them. I am confident they will be better prepared with distant learning this time around. Thank you for allowing online students to participate in school functions if applicable. Sitting in class all day every day is different than allowing a student to participate in an event for an hour or 2. Amanda Beck, when a date will we have an official plan announced? We have all been waiting as other districts announce. We are understanding a solid plan. We are under the understanding a solid plan would be announced tonight. These are options being announced as many of us are working parents without full-time resources to help with work schedules and other children relying on this decision. Brady Emond, and I'm sorry if I got that name wrong. As I have voiced concern regarding this virtual classroom and virtual work for my children during the end of last school year, I will again voice concern as to how you will make this virtual learning geared towards special needs children as mine, who is already behind and struggles on a day-to-day basis with functioning. The online school was not always a good fit for him as he is easily frustrated with computers and new programs. It was hard to submit homework and hard for him to keep track of what he had already done and still needed to do. Our home environment is not always the best atmosphere for learning either. I am not a stay-at-home mom. I am an RNOB on the front lines and cannot quit my job to devote hours trying to teach my kid the program you have all had a summer to figure out. Last school year, my kid fell through the cracks. All the support he had through public school went completely out the window. My concern is that the same thing will happen again this year. What resources do parents have? What rights do parents have? And this new virtual learning, is it flexible? Because as I said before, I work, so days I work, I will not be home to monitor if my child is logging on appropriately. Also, I have 2 babies at home that require my time and whom are not on your school schedule. So again, will accommodations be made for children and families who cannot fit to your planned school day? Or will we just be out of luck like last year? I've been in Allen Park very long and probably won't be here much longer. From what I've seen, this community doesn't care for one another. You talk about anti-racism, but what about anti-bullying? In the 2 years I've been here, my kids have come home more times because of bullies than for any other reason, not only from peers, but from adults. Parents of the kids who bully have bullied my kid, and when brought to the educators, nothing is done. I'm so over Allen Park cult-like environment. If you weren't born in Allen Park, you nor your kids matter. I was hoping there would be better news and better explained plan, but it doesn't look like this is going to happen either. I keep waiting and waiting for the plan this year so I can prepare, but I guess parents will have to scramble at the last minute, right? Angela Pavlik. For the high school, why couldn't kids stay virtual with their classmates, and kids who want to go back to the physical building can? I hate having to make the choice of remote learning and ingenuity. Some kids are higher risk for in-person or comfort level. The kids really need interaction with their peers and teachers. You've already done the hard work modifying the schedule. Tracy, what is going to be done to ensure teachers are actually teaching in the spring? Some teachers were awesome while some did nothing but check in and talk about sticks in their yard. Julie Hedgedus, and I'm sorry again, I know I pronounced it wrong. What is the percentage of people that voted for in-person choice as their first or second selections? Joel Berkey, it was mentioned a number of occasions that teachers are not fully engaged in online learning. I think it is noteworthy that the nature of the governor's multiple executive orders effectively gutted the abilities of teachers to assess student learning and provide meaningful feedback. For example, teachers were not allowed to even grade assignments. Students learned very quickly they could do nothing and pass with the grade they had on March 12th. Let's not forget that. Martin Naschef, if you're doing virtual learning for the first 5 weeks for safety, how can they play sports? Lisa Caps, how are you going to work with my family? I have 8 kids, 1 in special needs classroom. Both of us work. Will there be something optional in the evening? I see virtual learning is a struggle in my home. Jennifer Mazicki. Sorry, Jennifer. I know I mispronounced your name. What is the plan for preschool in Allen Park? Chris Klanowski. I would like to know what technology will be provided to students during the virtual setting and how the books and printed materials will be provided. To be expected to incur expenses by purchasing technology and printer supplies is not fair to parents. I appreciate what is being done to ensure safety and hope the virtual environment this time is much different than that of the spring. Kristen Chapman, someone mentioned how to stop the spread if the child comes to school sick. I will gladly volunteer at the door and take temperatures or any type of volunteer work to help the school run smoothly. I've been an active parent participating in the PTA Booster Club, and I am a registered nurse. I work 2 days a week and would love to help any way possible to keep our kids, staff, and community safe. Megan Sire, what is the plan for returning to class learning for the virtual? What is the plan for returning to in-class learning for virtual learning for the preschool programs? I don't know if I read that incorrectly, but that was the best that I could do with that one. Amber Dillon, to my knowledge, APPS does not have a school nurse. Is there a plan to implement a district or even a per school nurse? Lisa Lyon, what condition in the state will keep us from returning to in-person learning October 5th? Will it be a certain case count or some other statistic? Andrea Alvarez, thank you for your tireless effort from all parties involved. I mirror similar concerns Mr. Shearer posed. As a data-driven profession, an additional question I pose is how much local data was crunched determining the plan? A cumulative data provided by this census in Michigan.gov states that 1.5% of Wayne County residents have contracted COVID-19, 1.5%. I'm very concerned as a parent of 4 and professional that works within the district how I will ensure my children are engaged learners throughout these 5 weeks or longer. Miranda Anderson, I understand this is not top of the list, but being that we're trying to get it to feel like a typical school year, are yearbooks going to be an option this year? That it may be the last year for certain kids who are in high school. Understanding that there are a lot of pictures taken throughout the school year for sports, band, NHS field trips, and school events. Should parents submit at-home photos for the yearbook for this year? Yearbooks are typically far away, but several students have asked about whether or not they will be receiving them. Lisa Caps, sorry, one more question. I would like to know what we're doing with children that have compromised immune system, as I also have a child that if he gets sick, he has to be hospitalized. My plan was to keep him isolated from other children and let him start with online schooling. Is this going to be an option for kids? What, Amy Masala, what if someone else in a student's or teacher's home tests positive? Suzanne Bowling, the schedule for the middle school shows first through third hours on Monday and Wednesday and 4 through 6 Tuesday and Thursday. When and if they return to school, will it continue that way or will it be back to all hours in the day? Angela Pavlik, since the older kids in high school are more independent, it would make sense to allow them to continue remote with their classes, not Edgenuity, and open up class space to accommodate families that need in-person. Sorry, I want to make sure that I'm getting that right. Since the older kids are more independent, it would make sense to allow them to continue remote with their classes, not Edgenuity, and open up class space to accommodate families that need in-person. The secondary kids can have large class sizes online, and then you could in-person, opening up staff to teach smaller in-person classes to families that need that in-person class. Flynn McCabe. I believe more planning needs to be done for in-school learning for the high school. Need to establish a list or concern and include variables to place best preventative solution. Keep kids in homeroom and move teachers per subject. Core classes would need to be chosen accordingly in groups so we don't have a mixture of students needing different subject teachers. I support in-school learning, just passing along thought starters. Keep lockers near kids' homeroom. Use partitions where possible. Maybe a parent does assessment online, taking temp and checking for symptom before sending to school. If a kid has a fever, don't send them to find at school. Buses will need to be delayed until we have a solid plan for checking drivers before they get on and students enter the bus. Ashley Perrin. Hello, so if I don't feel the best choice for my child is to return to school after 5 weeks of remote learning, would I then have to sign her up for the full online school platform? In regard to the full online platform, is there a charge associated with enrolling? And if I did that, would she still be an Allen Park School District member if and when she does return and the pandemic subsides more? Thank you. Ed Kleinow, Ed, you must have submitted a couple of times because this is, again, what percent comes back as a first or second choice. Angela Pavlik, you don't have to read, just consider. If you allow the kids to stay remote, I won't choose Edgenuity. It seems the cost of Edgenuity is a factor, and that should be a motivation to extend remote to kids who can't. A Zoom camera or monitor could be alongside a teacher or class. Also, if we start remote, can we switch to Edgenuity? Mark Courtwright, we were promised to see the parent survey results from July of that meeting. Please share the data. We deserve to see the unfiltered results, not grouped in an attempt to skew data. 2, if in-person learning is allowed in phase 4, why are we not following the guidelines? 3, there have only been 333 cumulative cases in an entire city of 27,000 people in Allen Park. How can Allen Park schools be closed and New York City's will open? 4, how can we afford to eliminate instruction on Fridays when we already know that online classes are not as effective? Chris Chapman, just a suggestion. What about study groups on Friday? It would be easy to social distance in the cafeteria or gyms at school to offer some extra support in person. Laura Lukey, would it be possible in the future to get the number of respondents who, when you offer survey percentages? Also, if my memory serves me, that would you send your student for face-to-face instruction was an if-then question. If it were safe, would you send your student to school? It sounds like everybody has been working diligently. However, there's a lot of uncertainty. I'm not sure the results prove reliable. And with so much uncertainty, how was it decided a 5-week delay would be a sufficient amount of time to be safe given current COVID trends not seeming to be drastically changing in the near future? Kristen Chapman, will electronic devices be given to every student or just those in need? The board is talking about providing laptops to 6th graders for use over 6 years, where parents of 8th graders be given a chance to purchase. Amy Crawford, as a parent of a special needs child, I urge you to consider in-person learning. All children cannot learn through virtual means. Adrian Guerrero, with the one-on-one initiative for Chromebooks, are the students required to use the school-supplied Chromebooks, or will they be allowed to use their own personal laptops or Chromebooks? Kristen Chapman, how do I apply for the nurse position? Kristen Chapman, other school districts use nurses. Typically, they do not make $60,000 to $70,000 that hospital nurses do. AP has a ton of nurses in the community with kids in the district. I personally would consider a school nurse a position of honor and willing to do it for less, like the $45,000 to $55,000 compared to other districts. Another suggestion is possibly asking the community for volunteers. I would also be willing to volunteer 1 day a week at the school. I would strongly recommend a registered nurse versus an LPN. Jessica Bedient, in regards to the nurse position, would there be a nurse for each school or would the nurse travel? It was brought up about having to stay with a sick kid. How would that be feasible if there are multiple sick kids at a time? I am an RN, and in my opinion, it would be cheaper for the district to pay the nurse instead of going through a third party. Depending on the contract with the third party, the district may still be responsible to pay the nurse regardless if they are there. A question should be asked for the third party if the nurse travels to different districts and you would have to give advance notice that you would want the nurse for a certain day. I will double check and make sure that is all of them, but I believe that is it, Mr. Miller.
Okay,
Yep.
Dr. Podolsky, If you discover that you're wrong, just pipe back in while we're going through our officers' reports, okay?
Yep.
Okay, well, we are 3.5 hours in, so we're going to start. We're going to start with reports of officers at this point. The length of your report is certainly up to you. We'll start with. Let's start with Dr. Warren.
Hey everyone, I know it's late. I appreciate you all for coming. I've been kind of looking at the numbers of how many people attended, and it's just an amazing testament to Allen Park that we have so many viewers today, as this is a huge, important issue for everybody. I'd like to thank Sarah, Mike, and Mrs. Parafleece and the RAE team for their amazing presentation. And congrats to all the new retirees, and congrats to all the new hires. For all of you guys on your different teams, Adam doing all the work, making sure we can go one-on-one, Barb for all the work that you've done. Everybody, you guys have just done such an amazing job. I really appreciate it. I'm sorry you guys could hear the crackle in my voice during my vote. It's not an easy vote for me. I believe my kids should be face-to-face. It's very, very difficult and very emotional for me. The fact that, unfortunately, we're not ready yet, weighed on my concern. So that's it. I hope you guys have a great night. Thank you all for coming.
Okay, Dr. Warren, thank you. Mr. Moynihan.
Thank you everybody for being here today. One thing that I was going to mention when we were talking about the nurses, actually look into volunteers, which I didn't bring up at the time, but in the comments there were 2 registered nurses that literally volunteered their time. I think we should follow up on that. We do have a good district. I know through all my years in Bulldogs and all the other sporting events that we always had lots of volunteers. No one ever got paid for anything back then. So I think that's somewhere we got to look to see if we can get talk to those ladies and see if they can share the days. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Moynihan. I agree with you. Great comments. Mrs. McDonald. Mrs. McDonald.
I'm coming, sorry. I echo everybody's sentiments. Thank you to everybody who attended tonight and all the focus groups, and congrats to the retirees and the new hires. And I'd like to thank the staff for all their emails expressing their positions and concerns. And I'd like to take a minute right now to recognize a dear friend, Rose Grzinski, who passed away recently. She was one of the most memorable and phenomenal teachers I had the pleasure of working with. She served as one of my mentors early on. She was probably the most senior teacher with 4 years of experience who moved over from Lindeman to Benny when Benny reopened, and she got to deal with all of us newbies. So she was just a phenomenal lady, and my condolences to her family. Thank you.
Well said, Mrs. McDonald. Thank you. Mrs. Flipiak.
Hi, I'd like to echo everything everyone has said, and Jeanette and I are on the same page tonight. I too was going to say something about Rose. I co-opted with her when I was a senior in high school in her kindergarten classroom, and I learned so many things from her. One of which was that when you put a star on a kid's paper, you had to draw it completely and close it because you wanted to teach children to be neat when they did their work by setting a good example. And every time I draw a star on a kid's paper, I still always think of Rose, and was just heartbroken to hear of her passing.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Flipiak. Mr. Shearer.
I just wanted to say, one incredible effort to prepare all this and iron out the options. It'll be nice now that we've got it narrowed down to one. We could really start getting into the detail. So superlative effort there. The racial awareness and equity presentation, amazing. That these two alumni would, get this thing going. I'm anxious to get it from, get some more meat on the bones there and start making specific recommendations and taking specific actions. It's really exciting. I was encouraged that we're hiring teachers that are from outside the district. Sometimes we tend to, I think we get a little too, it's nice to get some non-Allen Parkers too, to kind of balance everything out. So, judging by the resumes I saw, these people were incredible. So, my hat's off to the hiring team. With respect to the COVID, this is going to take a little while, but I'm telling you, I researched this. I'm an engineer by training, and I make decisions based on data, and I researched this for days. And I was Mr. Darga and Mr. Miller and Mr. Tefelsky were kind enough to let me go through my 40 PowerPoint slides. And at the time, I thought we should go back to school. But after talking to them and things I hadn't considered, I think going back to school now would be reckless, immediately on September 3rd. So I think we all agree we want them back in school. It's got huge benefits. It's better for everybody. But, until we have testing available, and you look at the experience of these other states, it's just been a disaster. Everybody that started in person is going back to online, or they've got massive quarantine quantities because, you can't find out for 2 or 3 days. And what parent is going to want their kid to be in the class? If they were in the classroom with an infected kid, they're going to want their kid out. I mean, it's just, so the experience shows that it doesn't work. If the Tigers can't protect their kids, their players from COVID, and the White House can't protect the National Security Advisor, with our best efforts, we're not going to be able to keep COVID out of the school. The data shows that the community spread will work its way into the school. So we need more time to do this phase 4 requirement from the state. There's 192 tasks that you have to do, 192 requirements by the state. So we need more time to robustly implement those and make it as safe as possible. And then we need, like John said, rapid testing. You got to be able to have a test result in 1 to 2 hours, or you're just going to turn around and send everybody home. The other one is COVID is not going away in the community. It's still here. 27 Allen Parkers have died from COVID-19. Kids that got infected over the summer, staff it's just, the state is only now seeing a little bit of a decline in the running average, but Wayne County still, we don't meet any of the criteria that anybody laid out. 14-day decline, lower positivity rates. And, I did a lot of research on the health effects, and, the risk of mortality is lower for kids, and the risk of getting infected, the severity, but, it's not zero. The risk isn't zero. And like Gordon mentioned, there's no data on long-term effects, and now they're talking about this, some of the kids are, so it's too risky. It's too risky. So I think we got to wait a little bit, but we can't give up on in-person schooling, because that's the best thing for the families and for the kids. So the only thing I would add, lastly, is we got to watch the money. I know I saw a temporary spreadsheet of COVID costs versus COVID. They're actually savings, etc. I think we should get that nailed down and published. I don't think we should do busing at all, except for, homeless, special needs, family burden. That's just asking for trouble. 70 kids with masks on. I mean, we're kidding ourselves. And then again, the last thing I'll say is, we need, if we think these families are going to be able to teach these kids at home, elementary kids, we're just absolutely kidding ourselves. So we got to get out ahead of that, either with like podcasts, fully asynchronous, bring them into the school and just separate them, evening classes. We got to do something creative because there's no way all the families are going to be able to support that, especially, and the burden will fall hardest on, lower income families. So we're just going to, there's just a lot of risk. So anyway, as an engineer, the data says don't go back now, wait, because, and people will say, well, what's going to change? Well, rapid testing will change, maybe to get a vaccine, it's just, so anyway, that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scheer. Great comments. And I do want to thank you, by the way, for sharing your data last week. That was incredibly informative, and I got a lot out of that. So thank you for your efforts.
You're welcome.
Having seen your PowerPoint, I know that Ford Motor Company misses you. Mr. Klein.
No, I complain too much.
No, it's good to have different people on the board. We all bring different skills. So thanks, Pat. Yeah, it's a different time, and I listened to the comments, and it's great to have a community that cares that much. This really is going to be the year that we realize, how critical our schools are to the community, how we really are the hub of the community in many ways, and how we need those teachers and those school staff members back working with their kids and in partnership with parents and as a large community organization. It's critical, and yet we got to do it safely. So this is a tough time. I appreciate everybody's patience and everybody's grace in a really difficult time. That said, I can't tell you how impressed I am with Sarah and Michael and the team they've created to look at racial awareness and equity. It's a strange feeling when kids that grow up with your own kids all of a sudden become adults and are leading the charge in something that, really we should be doing, and they're taking it on as the new generation, and that is so hopeful and so gives me such great great hope for the future. And finally, Michelle Cavillo, what a great honor. I've gotten a chance to know her a little bit more. She kept inviting me to some of these Families Against Narcotics meetings, and she's out there in the community doing just amazing stuff. So that award is really well deserved. She really is an amazing asset to the district. And with that, and thank you to all the people who are working hard on all these committees to try to figure all this stuff out, right? There are teachers and staff members and administrators and community members and parents and everybody coming together to try to figure this stuff out. Thanks to all those people putting so much time into those different committees and different organizations. It really is, it's powerful to know that all those great people are out there. So thanks, everyone.
Mr. Klein, thank you. I echo your comments and your thanks towards all those folks. Mr. Klein, did you want to mention for the task force one more time the link that they would be able to?
Yeah, I do actually. Let me see if I can. Here we go. I think I pre-prepped it. I'll try to share this. So that was the link. Can you guys see that? I hope you can.
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I'll leave that up there just for a second. And that was the link that Sarah and Michael shared. If you want to get more involved, if you're interested, I was able to get it back from them. So it's a link tree with the period in between the R and the double E's / Allen Park RAE. All right. Is that long enough? Can I stop sharing that?
Yeah, I think you're good.
All right. Thanks. And certainly you can reach out to any one of us. We can help you find that again if we need to direct you to the right people.
That's right. Thank you, Mr. Klein. And I wanted to take that opportunity because I do think that, obviously all of us are hoping that this, what we're living through right now is something that goes away. The sooner the better. I think all of us would agree with that. What can be with us in a lasting way is what's going to come out of that task force. And although we've got this immediate pressing concern we're dealing with, the task force and the results of that task force is something that can have a long time benefit to the district. So thank you to the task force. Again, I'll say what I said before. Everybody wants kids back in schools. Absolutely, face-to-face. And everybody wants to be safe when they're doing it. And so the trick is getting there. And that's what we're working hard at this point. I would encourage everybody to maintain some form of open-mindedness and flexibility as we go through this, knowing that no matter what we do, whether it's return to school September 3rd or the 5-week delay, which we voted on tonight, none of those options is perfect. A return on September 3rd would have looked an awful lot different than back in February of this year. I can tell you that much. And it calls into question the level of instruction, how robust would it have been, what kind of socialization would they begin. So again, what we're dealing with here is the best of an awful lot of bad options and trying to make things as best as we can. But I do really appreciate the civility of the board this evening with a lot of great ideas. And frankly, I thought we had an awful lot of really good citizens' comments tonight as well that we can certainly take information from and build into how we're going to handle the 5-week virtual delay that we're going to do. And with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for all your efforts. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.